Lianshi never thought that this could happen to him. He was supposed to die, but he was reborn in a place called Dashan. Everyone knows that life is cruel, unfair, and full of dangers. But Lianshi is not one to resign himself to his fate. Ashir, what are you doing? Someone's voice breaks the peaceful silence of the sunny day. The guy to whom this phrase is intended looks thoughtfully into the distance, lost in his thoughts. He looks around as if he is seeing this place for the first time. Silly girl, what are you looking at? The question rings out again. Turning around at the sound of the voice, Lianshi was surprised to see his father. The man laughs at such a slow reaction. He asks his son to go with him to help him pull out the recently set net. Father promises that it will definitely be fun. As if coming to his senses, Shi happily rushes after his father. They climb into the boat and swim quite quickly to the set nets. The fishing was actually quite fun, although Shi wasn't very happy when a crab bit him right on the thumb. Together with their father, they cook freshly caught fish over the fire and eat it with gusto, choking a couple of times on particularly small bones. After eating their fill, they carved their own faces and names into the wood with a knife. While they were having fun, the whole day passed without them noticing, and it began to get dark. Shi and his father sat on the edge of the boat, admiring the beginning of the sunset. The boy's attention is drawn to a quiet splash somewhere nearby, and he turns around. "Red carp!" he cries out joyfully. Without a moment's hesitation, Shi jumps off the boat and dives. Paddling with all his might, he goes deeper and deeper in an attempt to catch a red carp. But at some point, the guy realizes that the fish has quietly disappeared somewhere. Moreover, no other fish come into his field of vision, and it seems as if all living things have disappeared from this place. Lianshi tries to swim back up, but he realizes that his entire body is immobilized and he cannot move. Before losing consciousness, he only has time to think about his father, who remains upstairs. Shi comes to his senses with his hands tied. A pleased Bansin and Lord Jiang look down on him. "What are you doing?" the guy asks, already realizing he's in more trouble. It turns out that he was lured here to become bait for a water monster. Shi slept peacefully right in this boat while these two guarded him. Banshin smirked contentedly as he looked at the bewildered boy. Shi realizes that it was just another dream. He arrived in this world a month ago and took over this body because its original owner died of illness. The body's owner's mother died during childbirth, so he grew up with his father. Unfortunately, his father passed away 3 months ago, and the boy had never experienced such emotions as the owner of the body kept in his heart. Last month, before he fully realized who he was, Shi fell for Zhang's trick and became bait for a spirit monster. That's how he learned that there are paranormal things in this world. People are able to achieve incredible success through cultivation, and such people are called martial arts masters here. However, not only people are capable of self-improvement, but even animals. "It's here!" Lord Jean shouts loudly. The water monster they had been waiting for had finally arrived. Shi glances around sharply to see the monster he's about to become bait for. The monster's size is several times larger than the boat's. Even under the thickness of water, the water monster looks huge and powerful. Lord Jian is horrified by such size. He was told that this monster was only half the size of a human, and the closer the monster gets to the boat, the more the Lord begins to panic. But even despite the fear and horror he felt, Jian had been waiting for this moment for many years. He is preparing to deliver a blow that contains 10 years of diligent training. "Can you survive this?" The Lord grins, confident of his victory over the monster. As soon as the water monster approaches the boat and opens its mouth wide, the Lord rushes to attack. To the horror of everyone else, the monster swallows the guy in just one bite, along with half of the wooden boat. Ban Shin, who didn't expect this, screams at the top of his lungs in fear, while Shi clings to the remains of the boat with all his might to avoid falling into the water. "I can't die here!" the man screams. He turns to Shi, and the boy realizes that things are bad. With one swing, the man thrusts the dagger straight into Shi's hand, which he was holding onto the rest of the boat. With a cry of pain, the boy unclenches his injured hand and falls down. He holds his breath and mentally prays for help, trying to loosen the ropes that restrict his movements even a little. In desperation, he bites into them with his teeth and finally frees his hands. But this will not help him in any way, because the monster is already approaching him. The pitiful remnants of air in Lianshi's lungs, burning with pain, run out, and consciousness begins to slowly leave him. The boy begins to see the blurry silhouette of his father right in front of him, demanding that he wake up immediately. She realizes that these are just hallucinations of his dying brain. How wonderful it would be if this were true and my father was really there. Shi reaches forward, trying to grab his father's outstretched hand, and at some point he actually succeeds. He grabs his father's wrist, which turns out to be a piece of the boat, the very same part they had carved funny faces into together back then. With a sharp jerk, the young man finally emerges from the water, continuing to hold on to the piece of wood to stay on the surface. He looks around in horror, finding many more parts of the destroyed boat. Before the guy has time to understand anything, he is pulled back under the water again. Shai reaches his hand up in a futile attempt to touch the boat wreck again. The huge water monster doesn't give him the slightest chance to escape. Consciousness begins to slip away from the boy again. What he regrets most now is that he couldn't save his father's boat. He tried very hard and did everything he could, but it seems like none of it matters now. The monster pulls him to the very bottom and throws him down sharply, causing the guy to fall right onto the sand, strewn with other people's bones. The monster's mouth opens wide, and its eyes begin to gleam even more intensely and furiously. Right in front of Shir's face, rows of dagger-sharp teeth appeared, dripping poisonous saliva. The air in his lungs ran out, and the young man lost consciousness again. An unusual chest rose from the bottom of the pond, above which appeared the spirit of the Lord of the Pool, Hua, who was capable of awakening powerless and weak creatures. These streams resolutely rushed towards the young man, enveloping his entire limp body. The chest glowed even brighter, and the system began to activate and connect to Shi's body. The guy slowly began to regain consciousness, despite the complete lack of air. When he finally came to, he panicked, thinking that he was still dying. The last thing he remembers is a terrible monster that was about to devour him. Remembering that he is still in the water, the boy begins to wave his arms, trying to get to the surface. Suddenly he realizes that the resistance has disappeared, and he can walk on water as if on land. A glowing sign appears right before his eyes, notifying him that he has acquired the active skill, Water Flow Control. She realizes that he can not only control the flow of water, but even breathe calmly. How is this even possible? He screams silently to himself. Even more surprising is the fact that all his wounds magically healed and disappeared. While studying new abilities, Shur completely forgot about the water monster. So he completely misses the moment when the monster sneaks up from behind and attacks. Shai screams in fear and closes his eyes, covering his face with his hands in horror. When, after a few seconds, he realizes he is still alive, the boy hesitantly opens one eye. The monster in front of him finds himself bound by multiple streams of water. The game window appears again, and Shai realizes that it is the same system as in the comics he read. Now he understands that in water there are no limitations for him. Moreover, he can even control it. However, this control has its limits, and the monster can still be freed with some effort. The monster growls furiously, becoming even more enraged. The monster lunges forward, trying to grab the guy's leg with its teeth again. Shai successfully dodges, but knows that at this rate he won't last long. Suddenly, the system notifies that the skill, Bloody Sign of Subordination, has been acquired. Thanks to him, Shai will be able to draw an ancient rune with his own blood to make a contract with the water monster. Shai is definitely going to put this skill to use. But in order to do this, you first need to catch the water monster. Water flow control, the boy cries out and directs streams of water at the monster, preventing it from moving so rapidly. The monster opens its mouth wider, roaring loudly in rage. He lunges forward, intending to bite off at least one of the guy's limbs. A deep wound appears on Shi's palm, from which bright red drops of blood immediately begin to spread in all directions, forming runes. The guy presses his hand to the scales of the water monster, and it begins to glow with a fiery red flame. The monster lunges forward, but Shi grabs one of its fins with both hands and is pulled in after the monster. Is this really how magic works? The boy thinks, clenching his teeth with the effort. His eyes begin to be covered with a black veil with bright streaks of fire. Memories of the deceased previous owner of this body flash through his head. Shai realizes that he really wants to live. "Pitiful monster, submit to me!" the boy screams, squeezing his burning palm tighter on the monster's scruff. The next moment, an exhausted Shu is already climbing out of the water onto the shore. He gulps in air greedily, glad that he was able to survive. Immediately behind him, a water monster slowly appears from the water. The guy rises and sits up, looking with pride at the huge monster that he was somehow able to subdue. He orders the disgruntled monster to return back to the water, promising to call him if he is needed. After the rune was placed, a spiritual channel was formed between them, through which he could contact the monster from anywhere in the world. The guy gets up from the cool grass and decides it's time to go eat and go to bed. Luckily, he still has some memories left in his head, and he will be able to find his home. The monster obediently dives into the water. Sinking smoothly to the bottom, he too returns home. Morning comes and the villagers begin to go about their daily business in the main square. Ban Shin, smiling obsequiously, leads Lord Zheng, who is Lord Zhao's servant, to Shi's house. The villagers who notice them immediately understand that Ashur will be in trouble. One of the guys named Li Libo is the most saddened by this. He looks at the departing company with disappointment. Ban Shin mentally rubs his hands, getting ready to take all the belongings of the guy he thought was dead. All that remains is to confirm that the mission failed. It's all because of that weakling Jiang, the man thinks gloomily. He resolutely approaches the door of Shi's house and kicks it down with one movement of his foot. "Mr. Zhen, please come in." the man begins to fawn. But as soon as he turns around, all the joy and anticipation instantly disappears from his face. He points his finger at the yawning Shi with an indignant cry. The guy smiles sleepily back at him, asking what they are all doing here. "Are you alive?" Banshin continues screaming. Behind him, he hears Zheng calling him stupid in frustration. "Mr. Zheng, it's Lian Shi." Banshin laughs a little nervously. The gloomy man remarks how lucky this guy is to have survived and not become bait for the monster. Banshin mentally calls the boy the rudest words. Zheng, without thinking any further, gives the order to capture Shi. The servants grab the bewildered guy by the shoulders and drag him towards the exit. He tries to resist, but gets punched in the stomach. Banshin tells the young man with a chuckle that Lord Zhao hired martial artist Jiang to deal with the monster that is plaguing the villagers. And it turns out that Shai somehow made a deal with the monster and killed their savior. The guy replies that everything was wrong, and that they kidnapped him to use him as bait for the monster. "Because of you, Master Jiang died, and you still dare to come back, monster?" Banshin shouts over him. Shai remembers that this is what he was called in his past life. There, he was an outcast, whom every person he met tried to hurt. He was an orphan, and received a ton of ridicule and bullying every day. Everyone around him was convinced that orphans constantly steal. Shai just looked at these people in silence, internally burning with hatred and resentment. "Attack if you're not afraid," one of his attackers laughed. It was then that Shai was nicknamed a monster because he was unstoppable. And now the guy decides that although it is quite risky to demonstrate his abilities, giving up is also not his style. So he suddenly lunges forward, breaking free from the other man's grasp, and headbutts Banshin right in the stomach. In response, the man kicks the guy with all his might, throwing him away from himself. Shai is determined to fight to the end, even if it means becoming a real monster. He will tear to pieces everyone who dared to attack him today. Banshin suggests that Mr. Zheng tie up this crazy person and take him to the Zhao estate. There is a shortage of people there, and such an orphan would be perfect. Zheng smirks and offers the guy to become Lord Zhao's adopted son, and then they will let him go, otherwise they will break his legs. Rumor has it that those who were adopted into this estate disappeared without a trace, and quite a few people have disappeared there recently. Who dares to hurt little Aishi? Suddenly a menacing cry is heard. This is the village chief that Li Libo brought. Zheng doesn't have time to say a word. "I'm actually a legitimate servant of the Dashang dynasty. Do you want to attack a government official?" the village chief shouts in rage. Zheng realizes that problems have begun. The headman continues to shout, threatening everyone with the heart attack he will surely have if they don't leave the boy alone right now. "What a decrepit old man," Zheng curses silently. He decides not to argue with the crazy old man today, but promises that Lord Zhao will not let it go so easily. With this, he heads for the exit along with his servants. In the end, the man manages to say that Shai is as ungrateful as his father was. Finally, the two companies part ways. The headman begins to scold Ashir and explain that some conflicts are best avoided to avoid serious consequences. Li Libo disperses the onlookers crowding around the house and takes the headman outside. Shai understands that this could happen in the future. He watches the departing headman and thinks that next time he might not be around. The guy decides that he absolutely must become stronger, and the emerging system is his chance. As if reading his mind, the notification window appears again, stating that another water entity has been found. That same evening, the young man returns to the water again. After receiving the crocodile, Tahua can contact him via telepathic channel at any time, so she mentally summons the monster and freezes in anticipation. He looks closely at the water, and after a while the monster emerges, creating a large wave. But to the boy's great surprise, only a small crocodile, no taller than his knees, jumps out onto the shore. "Where did the giant crocodile go?" the boy screams. The system immediately tells him that the subordinate aquatic creatures can change size to control the energy they consume. Now everything is clear, and she admires the incredibly clever system. The guy remembers the recent notification about the discovery of a water entity. He asks the crocodile to show him where he found this very essence, and together they dive into the water. Shai swims after the monster, trying not to lose sight of it for long. It looks like the crocodile led him to some kind of grotto. Swimming closer, Shi looks inside. What he sees there seems simply incredible to him. Apparently, right in front of him, legendary spiritual plants are scattered along the bottom of the pond. The system again suggests that these plants are of aquatic nature. This means that the master can easily absorb them. In this world, there are plants and treasures that are saturated with various energies. These are what are called spiritual plants. Rumor has it that there is a pond in the backyard of the Zhao estate where unusual water lilies grow. They attract cultivators, who in turn become Lord Zhao's subordinates. Shai is very curious to see how much water essence he can extract from these spiritual plants. He turns to the crocodile in the hope that it will help him collect the plants. But this lazy guy is sleeping peacefully with his belly up and clearly has no intention of helping. Having collected all the plants, the boy emerges onto the nearest surface and carefully stacks them. Finally, he whispers softly, holding the bound plants in his hands. He takes his first bite, and the system immediately informs him that he has received the water essence. The guy's eyes light up from the wonderful taste he feels. With unprecedented enthusiasm, he pounces on the plants. And only after he has eaten every last crumb, he, full and satisfied, takes a breath. The system offers him the opportunity to merge with a water spirit and evolve into a pet monster. Without thinking twice, the guy chooses the second option. He immediately feels himself becoming stronger. With this power, he could definitely defeat those guys. Now he weighs 45 kilograms. The young man's body cannot accept any more energy at the moment. Now he needs to think about how to deal with his financial problems, because winter is coming soon. The crocodile will go into hibernation and will no longer be able to help. At this time, the little monster throws a large fish to the surface next to its owner. Seeing this, she has a brilliant idea. He happily picks up the crocodile in his arms. Now the boy will be able to earn some money by selling fish. The next morning, he immediately goes to the market and sells this fish for 80 coins. It's not much, but at least it's something. Now the financial problem is temporarily solved. All that remains is to figure out what to do with this madman Banshin Jen. Before the guy can finish his thought, the aforementioned madman appears right behind him. With a fake smile, Banshin convinces the guy that there was just a misunderstanding between them and he would like to apologize. His boat is nearby, so why doesn't Shai go and have lunch with him? He promises the guy that there will be only the two of them on the boat. Lian Shi, who immediately sensed the falsehood and, anticipating the outcome of events, smiles. With a polite smile, he agrees to go into Banshin's boat. Just recently, Banshin had to endure a difficult conversation with Zhen. Lately, the tests at the estate have not been going very well, and several people have already died. There aren't enough medicinal herbs for everyone, and since Lian Shi is an orphan, that makes him an ideal candidate. Banshin promises his master that he will bring the boy tomorrow. Zheng promises him that if he succeeds, Lord Zhao will put in a good word for him with the big shots. This immediately delights Banshin, who believes him. Now he will do everything in his power to bring the boy to the Lord. If everything works out, he will be able to become immortal. Finally, I can do it! He bursts into manic laughter, ripping his shirt open. The man laughs out loud, as if not noticing that his entire body is covered with strange sores and scratches. And now, he finally managed to lure the boy onto his boat. The scenery here is magnificent, and the solitude of the place is very beneficial. Banshin offers to have some food and resolve all their differences, discreetly throwing something into the pot of food. Shai asks if he is sure that there is no one here at all. Of course, Banshin is confident. He personally checked everything. He doesn't need extra ears that might hear the boy's screams after he drinks this fish soup. Excellent, Lian Shu says and stands up. To Banshin's great surprise, magical currents began to appear around the boy's body. The man doesn't even have time to express indignation before his entire face is already covered by these streams. His head ends up in a water cocoon and he begins to choke and lose consciousness. The last thing the man sees is Lian Shi bending over him. After a few hours, he regains consciousness and opens his eyes with great difficulty. He immediately realizes that he is bound by strong and durable ropes. Lian Shi remarks with a chuckle that he sleeps like a baby. "What do you want from me?" Banshin exclaimed in panic. Lian Shi shows him a bag of money that he found on Banshin himself. Apparently he was paid well to bring Shi here. Looking around, Banshin realized that Lian Shi had brought him to the very place where the water monster had attacked them. And at that very moment, a huge crocodile emerges from the pond right behind Lian Shi. The man looks at the monster in horror, mentally saying goodbye to life. Shai tells him that it used to be a water monster, but now it is his beloved pet. Banshin screams in horror that Shi himself is a real monster. And as if frightened by his own words, he begins to bow quickly, loudly promising to tell Shai everything he knows. The guy immediately asks why Mr. Zheng was so eager to lure him to the Zhao family estate and why people are disappearing there. It turns out that all these people are needed so that the owner of the estate can become immortal. All who enter the interior, as Zhao extracts the pearls of immortality from them without the slightest pity. She realizes that Banshin himself brought innocent people to their deaths. The man is covered in sweat, trying to convince the guy that he was actually forced to do all this. But eventually he becomes rude, and she reacts in the same second. With a good swing, he strikes, splitting the man's skull with a small stone. Banshin had already seen through his monstrous nature. If Shai hadn't killed him, he himself would have been dragged into the estate and made into one of those pearls. And now, while he is gaining strength, he needs to find something that can protect him. Without a drop of pity or regret, Shai throws the man's body into the water. The guy doesn't see how his body begins to swell. Several days pass, and one fine morning, a crane flying past settles comfortably on the edge of the boat. Lian Shi's hand appears from the water. He grabs the side and scares the bird away. The guy gets completely out of the water and climbs into the boat. On his shoulder is a bag full of fish and a small crocodile. 3 days have passed since Ban Shin's murder, and in order not to arouse suspicion, Shi pretends to be a fisherman for everyone. As for the boat, he said that Ban Shin had given it to him as an apology, and after that, he had disappeared somewhere. But Lord Zhao's people won't believe this story so easily. Sooner or later, Ban Shin's disappearance will definitely lead them to Shi. He needs to become stronger, and the fastest way is to join a martial arts temple. There are 3 such clans in Pingyang, and the strongest of them is the Yang clan. Rumor has it that their leader has achieved such unprecedented strength that he can easily crush gold and cut stones. If Shi could join them, the Zhao family would not dare to touch him again. But the entry fee is between 5 and 8 liang, and at the moment the guy only has 2. Looks like he'll have to find another way to make money. Since the last leveling up, Shi feels his body getting stronger, and his mental power seems to be growing as well. Perhaps now he will be able to control 2 creatures at the same time. Moving in water is becoming more and more familiar. He invites Tahua to swim race. Lately, the guy has been training this way a lot. The current he twists under his foot pushes him out, giving him momentum. However, this requires increased control, so he gets tired faster. The guy continues to swim forward and suddenly notices some kind of shadow to the side of him. What was that? Lian Shi looks around in surprise and finally notices the reason for his concern. This is a mystical fish. In the world of Dashan, some creatures evolved by accidentally absorbing spiritual energy. Such monsters are called mystical fish, and right now, Lian Shi sees 2 such creatures. Although, as a rule, it is difficult to find even one such fish. Noticing the attention of a person, the mystical fish scatter in all directions. Shai commands the crocodile to catch one of them. Tahua obediently rushes after her, increasing in size as he goes. The mystical fish has no chance to escape the water monster. Lianshi rushes after the second fish. Belatedly, he regrets not having taken a fishing net with him. But even without this, the guy is doing well. To catch the mystical fish, he uses the skill controlling the water flow. A second later, the fish finds itself in a dense water cocoon. The joyful guy lunges forward and grabs her with both hands. Caught it! He rejoices, holding the fish in his hands. And then something huge and terrifying appears behind him. The guy, who doesn't notice this, is happy that he will be able to sell today's catch for a tidy sum. He only comes to his senses when something grabs him across the body. The stunned guy turns back. With an effort, he still manages to break free from the strong grip. The guy falls to the bottom, hitting his back painfully. Right in front of his face, there is a new monster with brightly glowing eyes. She recalls that he had just recently heard something about a man-eating catfish scurrying around these parts. Apparently, he was unlucky enough to stumble upon it. The guy looks at the monster in confusion as it prepares to attack. At the last moment, he manages to repel this attack with the help of water currents. It was very close, lucky his reflexes were so fast. To save himself from the monster, the guy decides to attack. Unexpectedly, the monster manages to dodge. The guy is surprised to realize that this catfish is making fun of him. The expression on his mustachioed face is more than eloquent. Tahua appears just in time, and with a powerful blow of his tail throws the monster aside. The shocked catfish doesn't have time to dodge and falls on its back. The proud crocodile smiles contentedly with his entire fanged mouth. He attacks again while the enemy has not yet had time to recover. Lianshi realizes that this is his chance. If he doesn't subdue this monster, he will definitely die today. Therefore, with the help of his blood, he draws the rune of submission. The system immediately rolls out dozens of warning messages. Lianshi's mental strength is currently insufficient, and attempting to subdue the water monster could cause a backlash. But the guy stubbornly continues to subdue the monster, and eventually something new appears in the catfish's gaze. After a while, the completely exhausted guy climbs onto the deck with his last bit of strength. Who would have thought that this catfish would resist so strongly? He almost lost control of himself and managed to develop mental overload. But the result was definitely worth it. Shi decides to name his new pet Chonky. Even despite the appearance of the monster, Shi still did not let go of the treasured mystical fish. Seeing his owner shaking it out onto the deck, Tahua swims closer and opens his fanged mouth, showing that he has also caught a second fish. The joyful boy gently strokes his pet's scaly head, sparing no words of praise. Now his tray is chock full of ordinary fish and 2 mystical ones. Shai lights a small fire to roast one of them and see if it will increase his strength. The fish turns out to be very tasty, and very soon only a small skeleton remains. The guy decides to keep the horn of this fish as a souvenir. By eating this fish, he received a total of 18 points, which would have been the amount that would have been awarded after eating at least 18 spiritual plants. The remaining mystical fish is even larger than the previous one, and will surely give 3 times more points, and then Shuri will be able to increase the fusion percentage with his spirit Ji Ding, the water monkey, to 10. But you'll have to hold back to save up for the entry fee. Shai hopes that the fish he caught today will be enough and heads to the market. He turns his head around, a little surprised, not understanding why there are so many people here today.
You got feeling in the floor, boys. Hey. Listen. You were lying in the front row, saying you believed in everything I paid, sharing secrets in the back door, smoke, helping at the promises we made. But when you stormed and tore my branches, you were ghosting fixes in the sun, breaking to my downfall with their glasses, calling what we had just for fun. Fake friends fade, like vapor in the morning, clear as the light. I see their shame. I was breaking while they tossed it to the story, using my crafts to carve their names. But my heart keeps turning pain into a chorus. I rise again from every flame. Let the fire burn the mask right off their faces. Unlock our key from the embers of my name, from the embers of my name. I've been wrestling with the mirror, asking, was it Lee who wore the lie? Did I barter all my boundaries just to keep a handful by my side? They were cheering when I stumbled, calling my confession just again. But I found a quiet kindness in forgiving who I was back in. From faith and faith, like vapor in the morning, clear as the light. I see their shade. I was breaking while they toasted to the story, using my crafts to carve their lamb from the embers. Oh, from the embers of my day. Oh, from the embers.
The festival that took place recently has already passed, so this excitement seems a little strange. As he gets closer, he understands why people are so excited. A guy named Ji Chang from the Chen family sells a mystical fish weighing just over a kilogram. Inspired, Shai pushes through the crowd of people, making his way closer to the merchant. It seems our port of Sanro has been blessed by the river god, Lian Shu shouts loudly. 2 mystical fish in one day. The villagers don't understand what kind of second fish they're talking about if the boy Chen caught only one. Lian Shu replies that he caught the second fish himself. With a victorious look, he takes out the mystical fish and proudly shows it to the villagers. After taking a closer look at the fish, people immediately begin to mock Shai, convinced that it is an ordinary fish and the boy is simply trying to sell it for more. Lian Shu frowned, not expecting such a reaction. Ji Chang looks at him mockingly, proudly holding his fish in his hand. Isn't that a red-blooded perch? Suddenly a voice is heard. This is one of the elders of the Yang martial clan named Hu Qi. He approaches Ji Chang and asks how much his fish costs. The boy blushes and asks what price Hu Qi thinks is fair. Having learned the weight of the fish, the elder offers a whole 150 fen for it. A joyful Ji-chang immediately agrees. They are interrupted by Lian Shi, who comes closer and politely asks the elder to look at his fish too. The villagers continue to mock the impudent boy. "It's a bull bream," Hu-chi suddenly says. Lian Shi adds that this fish weighs a whole kilogram and 600 grams. The elder offers the amazed youth to pay 325 fen for this mystical fish. Good heavens, my family couldn't accumulate that much even in several generations. Someone's indignant voice comes from the crowd. Ji-chang looks at this fish with a new look, his mouth slightly open in surprise. One of the villagers chuckles to himself that Lian Shi will not live long enough to spend this money. Meanwhile, the guy successfully completes the deal. Disappointed, Ji-chang turns around and leaves. Lian Shi asks the elder to explain why the man offered twice the price for his fish as for the red-blooded perch. Hu-chi explains that bull bream horns are used in medicine, making pills from them that increase stamina and help with blood stasis. She bows gratefully, silently glad that he kept the horn from the previous fish. The sun set, painting the sky crimson and giving way to approaching dusk. Sitting comfortably on the floor, Lian Shi counts the money he earned today. Someone's shadow appears behind the guy. Li Libo suddenly put his arm around Lian Shi's shoulders and began to loudly praise him. She remembers that he never really thanked the guy last time. "Why don't you give me those 350 fen as an apology then?" Li Libo laughs. Shai decides to ask the guy if he knows by any chance how much money it currently costs to join the Yang clan. Li Libo's father is just about to send him there. Just 350 fen are required for simple entry, but if you want to settle there, you need 500, and if Shai is going to settle there, eat and enjoy all the benefits, you need a whole 1,000. If you add up all the savings, Shi now has 455 fen, which means it is quite enough. He decides to go and enroll in the clan right tomorrow, together with Li Libo. "Got it," the guy laughs, punching him in a friendly manner. Suddenly, Lian Shi hears an unintelligible voice that tells him that he has found a mystical fish. She listens in surprise. And in the dungeon of the Zhao estate, the servant Zheng reports to the owner that Ban Xin has disappeared, and the last person who saw him was the boy Lian Shi. The owner of the estate orders not to disturb him with such trifles and to deal with all the problems himself. Zheng frowned with displeasure as he watched the gentleman leave. Unaware of this conversation, Lian Shi goes to the water again. Comfortably seated in the boat, he cuts spiritual plants. Having cut them into small, even pieces, the guy throws the plants into the pot. A small crocodile settled nearby, greedily inhaling the aroma of the food being cooked. Lian Shi lifts the lid to check if the dish is ready. He pours the resulting concoction into a small plate and takes the first sip. Tawa and Chonky look at their happy owner with envy. Seeing their looks, the guy decides to treat the pets too and pours some soup overboard. Thanks to this dish, he received another 24 points. The influx of aquatic essence is incredible, as one would expect from a mystical fish. Shai promises himself to definitely look for more of these creatures. And now it's time to level up even more. The guy brings up the system window and presses the pump-up button. The young man's strength begins to rapidly increase again. "I wish I could fight someone right now," the guy says dreamily, feeling how his body is now filled with strength and energy. He lifts the shocked Chonky above the water to check how much his water flow control skill has increased. Pets require a certain amount of points to evolve, and by feeding them some soup, those points were reduced. Tahua requires 799 points of water essence to evolve into a horned crocodile, while Chonky requires the same amount to evolve into a tiger catfish. Lian Shi takes out that very mystical chest, wondering what kind of thing it is and who created it. On one side is depicted the Yin dragon, on the second, some kind of huge monkey, on the third, deities with human heads and snake bodies, and on the last, a mysterious emperor in black robes. Tomorrow Shi will go to the Yang clan to become even stronger and deal with the Zhao family. It's early morning, and the boy sets off on his journey with Li Libo. The two of them settle down in the cart, among someone's bags. Li Libo turns his head animatedly from side to side, admiring the beauty of nature. Lian Shi, on the other hand, is waiting for them to finally arrive in Pingyang City. Having reached the place, the guys say goodbye to the driver and move on. Hungry from the long journey, they stop at the nearest cafe to have a snack. The big city is full of entertainment, and the guys decide to take advantage of it. With their mouths wide open, they watch the performance in the main square. At this time, several people were hiding in a nearby gateway. "Is this guy really going to make it through here?" one of them asks the other. He is confident that everything will be exactly like this. He heard with his own ears how Lian Shi told the boy Li Libo that he was going to enlist in the Yang clan. Yesterday he sold some fish for as much as 325 fen, which is a huge sum. That's why they're here today keeping an eye on this boy. They think that the boy will throw money away by giving it to those warriors from the clan, while they themselves can spend this money usefully. And indeed, very soon Shi approaches this place with his new friend. Li Libo chatters cheerfully, wondering how many bastards he can beat up at once after he finishes all his training. Shi quietly laughs at him, because even he himself is not sure that he can handle even a couple. One of the robbers jumps out from the gateway towards the guys. "Here we meet again. Give me your money." The gang leader laughs nastily. Choose money or life. Lian definitely doesn't intend to give them the money. Hearing this, the leader immediately jumps up and swings his fist. Unexpectedly even for himself, Lian Shi parries this blow with unprecedented ease, hitting the bandit's jaw with his own fist. Shouting insults loudly, the next man also tries to attack Lian Shi, and immediately receives an equally strong blow from the guy. Lian Shi grabs the hair on top of his head with one hand and squeezes tightly. With a sharp movement, he throws the robber by his hair towards his friends. The beaten man falls right on top of one of the surprised robbers. The next blow falls on him. Lian Shi takes care of enemies with just a few precise moves. "What speed? Just 9 moves and the fight is over," Li Libo whispers admiringly under his breath. Lian Shi himself seemed surprised at how quickly he defeated several bandits at once. Although he expected his speed to increase, he didn't think it would be that much. Li Libo isn't even sure this guy needs a teacher at all. Lian Shi laughs awkwardly, scratching the back of his head. Now they need to move on so as not to be late for registration. Li Libo looks at the back of the departing guy with a suspicious, thoughtful look. They arrive at the registration area, where they are met by Jian Chang Song. "Greetings, Senior Brother Shan," the boys chant in unison, clasping their hands in a welcoming gesture. Chan Sung asks them to come with him, so that he can take them to a man who will evaluate their abilities and tell them more about the clan itself. He brings them to their elder brother Hu will be their mentor. With surprise, Shai realizes that this is the same man who bought the mystical fish from him. Hu-Chi turns to face them, hearing voices approaching. He too immediately recognizes the boy who sold him such a large, healthy fish. Hu-Chi explains to the bewildered Chang Song that he recently used the beneficial properties of the bullbream, which he bought from this guy, for self-improvement. Chan Song laughs, confident that then Brother Hu will definitely be a suitable mentor for Lian Shi. She and Li Libo bow in gratitude when they are told that they can spend the night right here tonight. Hu-Chi asks everyone to follow him. Now they will see what natural talent each of the newcomers has. Lian Shi is surprised. This is the first time he hears about this. The mentor laughs and explains that this is necessary in order to choose the appropriate cultivation style. In fact, the guys don't even really understand what cultivation is in principle, and ask the mentor to tell them at least the basics. Hu-Chi replies that the warrior's path consists of 4 stages: skin, flesh, bones, and blood. At the skin stage, the body becomes stronger than that of an ox, which significantly increases protection. At the flesh stage, physical strength increases by an incredible amount, and lifting even someone heavy will be easier than light. At the bone stage, nothing will hide a person's inner energy, which will allow them to split stones with their bare hands. And finally, at the 5th stage, the cultivator's body will reach the pinnacle of human development. Naturally, no matter how much a person cultivates, the body always has limits. And to overcome them, 2 constant things are needed: techniques and special potions. Lian Shi and Li Libo listen to their teacher with their mouths open. By techniques, Hu-Chi means cultivation methods. For example, in the Yang clan, 3 styles are widespread, and if everything is done correctly, then any cultivator can understand them. What about potions? Shai immediately asks. Let's imagine that the techniques are a slippery and dangerous ladder, and in order to climb it quickly and safely, you need railings, and these are precisely the potions. For example, the bullbream that the mentor bought from Lian Shi. But now, beginners shouldn't rush too much. They're still at the very beginning of their journey, so they need to concentrate on each new step. After thanking them for the short lecture, Shai asks the mentor to identify their natural talents. Not far from what is happening, several young cultivators are sitting in one of the clan buildings and watching. "You were talking about this guy Zhao-san?" Lu Yangkai asks. In response, he hears an order to take this boy outside the clan's territory. "I'll handle the rest myself," Zhao Heyuan continues. At this time, in the Zhao estate, a servant reports to the master about Lian Shi. He says that the boy is only 15 years old. He is an orphan and the same age as the young master, which means that he is just perfect as material for extracting the medicine. If they can catch him, young Master Zhao's condition will improve greatly. Yuan has been weak since birth, and finding materials for pearls of immortality of the appropriate age is no longer so easy for Mr. Zhao. However, this young man is planning to join the Yang clan, and knowing Yang Dong Seon's character, it will be very difficult to get to the boy. None of the men conversing notices young Mr. Zhao, who is hiding around the corner and listening attentively to the conversation. A portrait of Lian Shi falls out of the servant's pocket, and the boy picks it up. "I need these pearls of immortality. Anyone who stands in my way will die," he thinks. The guy squeezes the portrait in his hand with all his might, crumpling the paper. Meanwhile, Li Libo was shouting indignantly, shocked that Shi's bone structure was at the highest level, while his was only at an average level. Maybe I'm just talented, Shi jokes. After inspection, they are sent to the parade ground. There they unexpectedly meet a familiar face. Right in front of them stands Chen Ji Chang, who was also selling mystical fish that time. What are you even doing here? He immediately attacks Li Libo's guy. It seems that a fight is about to start, and Lian Shi, laughing nervously, tries to separate them. Ji Chang is only 2 years older than him, a capable fisherman, and a good acquaintance of the previous owner of this body. Brother Ji, have you decided to train too? Asks Shi. He learns that Ji Chang was actually also selling fish to save up for the entrance fee. Shi smiles conciliatorily and asks him to go to the parade ground with them. Surely the instructor should have already started the lesson. And indeed, this is true. The boys join the training on the parade ground and barely make it to the end. Beads of sweat run down their faces, clouding their vision, and their muscles tremble with intense tension. Finally, the mentor announces a break. Now all the students can rest, and after lunch, Teacher Lu will continue the training. Lian Shi, Li Libo, and Ji Chang are sitting exhausted under a nearby tree when other students suddenly approach them and start bullying them. You smell like fish from a mile away. Get out of here, Lu Yangkai tells them with disgust on his face. If each of the boys paid him 100 fen, then so be it, he would let them stay. Li Libo, the most hot-tempered of their group, immediately jumps up, ready to start a fight. Lian Shi doubts that he has enough strength to deal with these three. Yang Kai continues to mock them, provoking them to fight, because he had just recently reached the peak of the skin stage, and it would be good to train. Shi wishes they were in the water now, otherwise he could easily teach this bully a lesson. Li Libo swears, sensing imminent trouble. Lu Yangkai, what are you doing here? The voice of their savior rings out. If you have nothing better to do, go do a plank for half an hour. The instructor continues to lecture the older students. Yang Kai finally manages to say that there is no place for cowards here, and the mentor yells at him again. Only after this does the boy bow to the elder and finally leave. Lili is still furious. The guy actively curses his offenders out loud. Shi thinks that the situation that happened once again proves that we need to become stronger, and very quickly. He warns his friends that he urgently needs to run home for a short while. They didn't even have time to ask why, as he quickly ran away. Li and Ji look after him in surprise. Shi received a danger signal from his pets, so he runs as fast as he can to the pond. Evening comes, but the guy still doesn't come back. Ji is sure he had his reasons. They start arguing with Li again, but it never comes to blows. The boys are distracted by some noise, and they all turn their heads in the direction of the sound. Next to them is Yang Kai again, and he is very serious. He is sure that now older brother Hu will definitely not be able to help these boys. Li and Ji screamed in anger upon hearing his words. I'll crush you both, Yang Kai laughs. Meanwhile, Lian Shi had already reached his pond. Sitting on Tahua's back, he slowly swims almost along the very bottom. Chonky and Tahua had almost reached the peak of the skin stage, but nevertheless, something frightened them so much that they called their master. What kind of creature is this? The boy wonders, carefully exploring the area around him. Judging by the tracks he now sees right in front of him, this creature is simply of enormous size. Tahua and Chonky look tense and a little scared, which means this creature is really dangerous. Since the last upgrade, Shi's fusion percentage with the spirit has increased to 11 and 7%, and he can now control up to 35 liters of water. In addition, the sensitivity radius has also increased to 6 meters, so it has a better sense of the water space. And now the guy sees someone's evil eyes glowing brightly in the darkness right in front of his face. The monster comes into the light, and Shi realizes that it is a crab, but of an incredibly huge size. He also has intelligence, and according to Master Hu, any animal that has passed the skin stage becomes mystical. Although it is unlikely that this crab is too strong, because then Chonky and Tahua would not have been able to escape from it so easily. But Shi is still not sure that he can handle it, because he doesn't even have a plan. Of course, he always wanted to become stronger step by step. Bad memories flash before his eyes again. Faces of people flashed by, trying to say something terrible to him and call him a monster. Accidents and dangers have always been part of Lian Shi's path. Any change in life requires risk. Truly significant things often happen by accident, and things that usually make no sense are planned. Shi is not ready to resign himself to fate, and if life offers him a chance, he will definitely grab it. Bai Xinjiang tried to take that chance away, and now he's dead. Want to take my lotus pond? Let's see who's stronger, Shi says to the monster crab in his mind. Behind him stand his loyal Tahua and Chonky, which gives the guy even more confidence. He gives the command to his pets, and they attack the new monster. Meanwhile, in the Yangkai clan, he is viciously beating up new disciples. Where did your friend go? He asks with a nasty grin. Ji-chang grabs a nearby rock and hits his opponent in the face with all his might. But unfortunately, the stone breaks into several pieces without causing any harm to the man. Enraged, Yang Kai suddenly stepped on Ji-chang's face as he lay on the ground with his boot. "You're digging your own grave," says the man. He orders his henchmen to watch the gate while he has fun with the boys. The cultivators obey, grinning vilely. Li Libo, driven to madness by this bullying, furiously attacks the smiling Yang Kai with his fists. The guy doesn't even have time to touch his opponent before the man grabs him by the wrist. With another movement, he sharply twists the other man's arm, twisting it behind his back. "And you like to wag your tongue, huh?" He laughs at the defeated guy. Grabbing Ji-chan by the hair, he lifts the boy's head up and thoughtfully says that those cheeky eyes really irritate him, so he'll gouge them out and then see how he trains without them. Li Libo screams in horror at him to stop immediately, but no one is going to listen to him. Ji-chang doesn't even have time to close his eyes when the man brings his fingers to his eye. With a sharp movement, he pierces the guy's eyes, causing him to scream in unbearable pain. Meanwhile, the battle in the pond continues, and the fighting is no less intense. With its powerful claws, the huge crab easily turns stones into tiny crumbs. He throws stones straight at Lian Shi, but the boy successfully dodges. He tries to strike himself, but for some reason the shell of this monster feels impenetrable. He asks Tahua to try to bite a huge crab. The obedient pet rushes forward and sinks its sharp fangs right into the huge claw. "Water flow control," Lian Shi shouts, pressing his palm to the monster's body. His psyche is overloaded, and the guy again begins to lose control of himself. The crab tries hard to escape the grip, clicking its huge claws deafeningly loudly on the water. Chunky comes to the rescue, rushing at the monster with all his might. The huge crab continues to try to escape and destroys absolutely everything around itself. Before Lian Shi's eyes, he uses his huge claws to turn precious spiritual plants into mush. This makes the guy even more furious. With renewed strength, he rushes to attack the monster. The guy coughs up his own blood, but even this doesn't stop him. The monster throws Shai away from itself, and the boy falls to the bottom. "Well, now you're definitely finished," he thinks, rising to his feet again. Frozen in place, Shai carefully examines the monster's entire body, trying to pay attention to even the smallest details. After all, this monster must have a weak spot somewhere. The giant crab has no intention of giving Shai that opportunity. Looking for a weak spot, it attacks decisively again. In his mind, the young man calls on his pets for help, and they immediately attack the monster again. Despite the difference in size, each of the animals fearlessly tries to somehow help their master defeat this monster. Shai thinks frantically, and finally it dawns on him that no matter what damage threatens it, the monster always instinctively protects its lower part, which means that its belly is its weak spot. The guy spent a long time calculating this move. He needed to compress the maximum possible amount of water pressure on the spear handle, which was no easy task. With the current amount of psychic energy, the guy will only be able to give 2 twisting turns, but even this is enough to speed up the spear 3 times. The system warns that psychic energy is at a critically low level, and the master risks losing control over the pets. Therefore, the current action must be stopped immediately. But Liansha is not going to give up so easily. Despite all the warnings, he grips the spear more tightly in his hand and launches a new attack. This time he knows exactly where and how to strike. He is ready to do anything for his lotus pond, and will spend his last strength and resources to defeat this monster. "I won!" She thinks joyfully as he manages to land a blow right in the gut. But this blow took away the rest of his already modest strength, so the guy's consciousness slowly begins to slip away. He comes to his senses already sitting on the surface. He tenderly strokes his pets, who pulled his unconscious body onto the shore. His head is splitting. The use of such techniques does not go easily. Noticing something big behind him out of the corner of his eye, the guy turns around. "You pulled out that monstrous crab too?" he asks his pets, amazed. Thinking about how much water essence is in him, a happy smile begins to spread across the guy's face. Tahua points out something on the monster's body to the inattentive owner. Shai comes closer and realizes that it was a female. He lifts up part of the monstrous body and discovers something resembling caviar inside. He regrets that he was unable to tame this huge crab, but there is still hope because inside the eggs are her babies. The boy sits down on the ground, lost in thought, trying to figure out if he can tame these little ones too. He makes another cut on his hand to create a bloody binding mark. The young man resolutely presses his bloody palm to one of the eggs. "Did it work?" the guy says quietly, watching the caviar closely. There is a crunching sound. The shell cracks and a small claw appears. The egg finally breaks and a baby appears before Lian Shi's eyes, and the system notifies that the owner has tamed the stone crab. Having finished with the binding, Lian Shi decides to immediately fortify himself with the meat of the defeated monster. He devours the delicious tender meat with gusto, carefully monitoring the process of his fusion. Finally, the merger reaches 36 and 6%. Behind the back of the guy, who is brightly glowing with magical power, blurry silhouettes of animals appear. He screams loudly, clenching his fists with all his might, and it seems as if his body is about to explode from the excess of power. Pets watch their owner's transformation without even blinking. Finally, the process ends, and she notices that all his wounds have healed and disappeared. A wonderful miracle. He laughs. Today, he earned a simply enormous amount of water essence, and now he can even feel the energy of his own blood. According to Elder Brother Hu, at this rate, he will soon be able to surpass the skin stage. The boy then generously distributes the remaining crab meat and eggs to Tahua and Chunky. He decides not to give meat to his new pet, so as not to turn him into a cannibal. That would be too cruel. Now, he is even closer to the peak of the skin stage, and when he finally reaches it, he will become a full-fledged member of the Yang clan, and the Zhao family will never be able to harm him again. Now it's time for Lian Shi to return to morning training. At this time, in the Yang Kai clan, he heard a menacing cry of, "Enough!" behind him. "Lu Yang Kai, that's enough." The man who approached continued. This is Elder Lu Xiaohu, and he demands that the man abide by the rules of their clan. In response, Yang Kai asks not to blame him. After all, he was only following young Master Zhao's orders. "Tell me, which rules will you follow, the clans or the Zhao families?" Yang Kai asks mockingly. Elder Lu remained tensely silent in response. Yang Kai begins to mock the fact that Elder Lu only left the Zhao family a couple of days ago and has already forgotten who his master really is. "Where would you be if our master hadn't taken you and your father in?" The man suddenly stops laughing. He reminds the instantly gloomy elder that his father is still in Zhao Castle. Xiaohu grits his teeth and quietly apologizes to his students because he must protect his family first and foremost. Hearing this, Yang Kai and his henchmen began to laugh out loud. The man's loud laughter is interrupted by a loud spit right in his face. He looks down and sees Ji Chang laughing quietly. "I hate to look at you. You're so pathetic," the guy whispers quietly with the last of his strength. Yang Kai calmly wipes someone else's saliva from his cheek. Without mercy, he again presses his dirty boot onto the body of the beaten Li Libo, breaking bones. The man gets a perverted pleasure from this process and does not intend to hide it at all. He won't lay a finger on Ji-chan again, but he intends to have a good laugh at his friend. Hearing this, the guy, in rage and despair, shouts at him not to touch Li Libo. Yang Kai is confident that no one will come to their aid and there is no one to intercede. Meanwhile, behind his back, his henchmen are scattered in all directions from the blows of others. Hearing this noise, Yang Kai suddenly turns around. A silhouette slowly emerges from the cloud of smoke. Finally, Lian Shi is born. He looks at his crippled friends and a cold fury lights up in his eyes. "Lian Shi?" Ji-chan calls out quietly, instantly sensing the change. The guy's body begins to rapidly become enveloped in bright, fiery streams of power. "I swear, I'll knock out every single one of your teeth," Lian Shi growls. At this time, the mentor and his master Yang Dong-sun begin to watch them from the roof. Hu-ti blames himself for getting too drunk while celebrating reaching the peak of the blood stage, which is why he was late. But he couldn't even imagine that Xiaohu was such a cold-blooded person. The master is sure that Xiaohu, although he seems like this, is actually very kind, but too many things are holding him back. And that is precisely why Xiaohu cannot reach the peak of the blood stage, because a warrior without courage is like a lifeless body. Hu-ti wants to help Shi, because he has just joined the clan, and Yang Kai has almost reached the peak of the blood stage, and the boy cannot handle him. However, Dong-sun asks him to wait a bit and not interfere. The blood energy of this boy looks very interesting. Meanwhile, Yang Kai laughs loudly at Lian Shi's promise to knock out all his teeth. But the young man is not going to waste time on unnecessary conversations. He is too angry for that now. So Shi immediately rushes in to attack. Yang Kai orders his retinue to capture the impudent small fisherman. The cultivators rush towards the guy, but they fail to grab him. Lian Shi easily dodges all their blows and attacks. He ducks under the arm of one of the cultivators, simultaneously delivering a powerful punch to the cultivator's jaw. The next opponent immediately attacks the guy, but he too meets with failure. With all his might, Shar slams his fist into his face, spraying someone else's blood everywhere. "Your turn," he says quietly, looking at Yang Kai. The man only laughs in response. Now he will show this impudent boy what a person who has reached the peak of the blood stage is capable of. He rushes into the attack and immediately aims his fist at the boy's face, but the boy easily dodges the blows and lands his own quite successfully. He slams his fist into the opponent's face, and Yang Kai is thrown aside. But the boy doesn't stop there, continuing to mercilessly beat him on his bloody face. Another blow in blood and Yang Kai's teeth sprayed in all directions. "Weakling!" Lian Shi smirks. This makes the cultivator furious. Spewing a multitude of dirty curses, he rushes at the guy with renewed vigor, but this time with a knife. Continuing to shout nasty things, he vilely stabs her several times. But at some point, Shi reaches forward, stopping him, allowing the weapon to pierce his palm. Now Shi realizes even more clearly that Yang Kai is truly a dishonest person. "Worthless, disgusting coward!" the boy hisses, swinging his arm to strike. He puts all his strength and fury into this blow, slamming his opponent's face right into the stone, smashing his face against it and knocking out his teeth. Bending down, Lian Shu looks closely at the frightened face of the defeated enemy. In desperation, he calls for Lu Xiaohu. After all, the man is his mentor, and should not just stand by while his student is being beaten. But Xiaohu doesn't have time to make any decision, and Shi doesn't have time to deliver another blow. Master Dongsun appears right in front of them. In a menacing voice, he announces that he is expelling Yang Kai and all those who attacked the disciples with him today from the clan. And Lu Xiaohu is waiting for him in the seclusion hall today for a serious conversation. Lian Shi looks with admiration at that same legendary Yang Dongsun. The man looks at him intently in response with a searching gaze. Shai thinks that now he will also be kicked out of the clan because he broke the rules right in front of the master. Is this the end? But what happens next knocks all thoughts out of the guy. "Would you like to become my personal disciple?" Dongsun asks unexpectedly with a smile. Lian Shu jerks his head up, sure he misheard. Don-san extends his hand to the boy, helping him to his feet. For the next few days, the entire Jan estate is buzzing like a disturbed beehive. Everyone is discussing the news that Master Yang has taken on a 9th personal disciple. Several girls knock on Lian Shu's door asking to come in. These ceremonial garments were passed into their hands by their elder brothers and sisters. They offer to help the embarrassed boy put them on, but she, embarrassed, convinces them that he can do it himself. When the girls leave, he breathes a sigh of relief. It's been 2 weeks since that fight with Yang Kai. All the boy's wounds healed quickly thanks to Master Yan's treatment. Now Lian Shu is no longer alone. He has a master and many brothers and sisters. It's time for revenge on the Zhao family. Hu Ti was especially impressed by the young cultivator. For the past 2 weeks, he had been telling each of his siblings how amazing it was that a boy who had just joined the clan could defeat a person who was almost at the peak of the skin stage. The master liked this guy at first sight, and the 4th brother, out of a slight feeling of jealousy, makes more good-natured jokes about this and about brother Hu Qi than anyone else. But even despite this, he still gave his new student his tungsten armor. Amidst the laughter and jokes, the students do not immediately notice Lian Shi emerging from his room. Hu Qi notices him first. Lian Shi walked out to the 8 disciples a little hesitantly, feeling a bit out of place in these clothes. "Older brothers and sisters," he says to them with a smile. "Lian Shi thanks you for the gifts." The young man bows. However, Liu Gong has not yet given his gift to his new brother. He prepared something special for his younger brother, and it is a tungsten steel ingot. With it, Shai can come to any forge and say what weapon he wants to forge. The boy thanks his brother for the generous gift, and together they head to the master. Meanwhile, at the Zhao estate, a faithful servant is discovered missing. Ban Xinjian's body was just found, but that's not the biggest problem. What is more important is that the contents of his stomach, which were very valuable, were missing. Zheng, who brings bad news, receives such a powerful slap that his neck almost breaks and saliva sprays out of his mouth in all directions. They are all in for terrible trouble from the government if this comes to light. In an attempt to justify himself, the servant blames Lian Shi for everything. He is sure that it was this boy who killed Ban Xin. However, the Zhao estate already knows that Shi has become Yang Dongsun's apprentice, and no one in their right mind wants to run into this master's blade. No matter the cost, Zheng must find the missing item or he will be finished. As for Lian Shi, Mr. Zhao has some thoughts on the matter. Meanwhile, an unsuspecting boy is at the Yang family estate, undergoing the process of being accepted as a disciple. Dong Xiang asks if Shi would agree to become his personal disciple, and he naturally agrees immediately. Upon joining the clan, a boy will be required to remain obedient, open-minded, disciplined, and respectful of his mentors and senior students. He must not harm those who are weaker, or abuse his position to achieve his own interests. Lian Shi agrees to these conditions without the slightest hesitation. Now, as soon as the young man drinks the cup of tea offered to him, he will become Yang Dongsun's personal 9th disciple. From now on, the master will become his patron, and no one will dare to unfairly offend Lian Shi. This news instantly spreads throughout the clan. At training, everyone is talking about the appearance of the 9th student. It's hard to believe that the most ordinary newcomer was able to immediately rise to such a height. There is also no less active discussion about the fact that Lu Yang Kai and his friends were thrown out of the clan after that attack on the juniors. Young Master Zhao, who could clearly hear all these conversations, was gritting his teeth in anger, diligently hatching the most cruel plans of revenge in his thoughts. Meanwhile, Lian Shi continues his studies calmly, and Hu Qi patiently tells him what the 4 barriers and 7 paths are. As the name suggests, there are a total of 7 paths: steed, wolf smoke, fierce tiger, Destroying Elephant, Divine Dragon, Crucible, and Transcendent Rainbow. Once a student reaches the top of the steed, he will be able to stop a dozen running horses with ease. By cultivating wolf smoke, at his peak, he will become stronger and deadlier than a pack of the most rabid wolves. On the path of the fierce tiger, his strength will increase even more, and ordinary people will begin to fear even his aura. If he reaches the path of the destroying elephant, every step he takes will shake the earth. He will be able to split mountains and calm rivers. This power is worthy of the level of a great general. At the next stage, the disciple will be like a heavenly dragon, freed from earthly shackles, and will become a holy hero of the entire nation. Almost nothing is known about the Huchi, Crucible, and Rainbow paths, but masters who reach this level ascend to the heavens. Now Lianshu wonders if he can return to his world if he achieves immortality in this one. Having heard this new information, the guy decides to ask what path their master is currently on. Instead of answering the question, Huchi first asks if his younger brother even knows how many clans there are in this area. After thinking for a bit, the guy replies that he has only heard of 3 clans. Huchi explains that the other 2 are here only because they can't afford a better place, but Master Dong Song chose this place because it is his true homeland. In fact, he is the only person in the area who has achieved the path of the ferocious tiger. Shai thinks that with his system, he too will surely be able to reach such a high level someday. Huchi chuckles at the impressed boy and decides that that's enough discoveries for today. It's time to end the lesson. Shi decides that now that he is out of danger, he needs to catch more mystical fish to finally break through the skin barrier. So he goes back to his favorite spot, where he successfully catches another mountain of delicious fish. However, he hasn't caught a single mystical fish yet, and Shai isn't sure if he ever will. His synchronization percentage with Ji Ding, the water monkey spirit, had already increased to almost 37. At this rate, the guy will reach the skin stage very soon. Suddenly, the silence of the lotus pond is broken by a strange sound, and a bright red feather flies past the young man's face. The water becomes more restless, and Shuri looks around in confusion, searching for the source of the sound. He is covered with splashes of water, and the guy tries to cover himself with his hands so as not to get wet and lose his vision. She squints and peers into the depths of the pond, trying to make out what's going on there. The waves become even stronger, and the guy's boat begins to rock dangerously. To his surprise, he realizes that he sees a huge toad grabbing an equally huge firebird. They surface, continuing to fight fiercely. The toad still fails to devour the red bird, and the monster awkwardly flounders in the water, creating even more waves. The biggest wave is already approaching Lian Shi and his boat. She knocks the guy down, and all the fish he caught today return back to the water. The boat, to his great regret, breaks into dozens of pieces. Lian Shi manages to grab hold of one of the largest pieces of wood. Right in front of him, the firebird appears again and begins to scream furiously. The monster attacks, and Lian Shi finds it very difficult to cope with its onslaught. Eventually, he lets go of the boat fragment and begins to sink to the bottom of the pond. Sometime later, he suddenly opens his eyes, coming to his senses. Looks like he passed out again, and his tamed animals once again slept with him and pulled him out onto dry land. Lian Shi believes that he was knocked out by the cry of that very bird. This is truly a monstrous creature and very dangerous. But the creature that grabbed this bird must be even more terrible. With a sigh, the guy admits that he wasted his time today, and now he has neither fish nor boat. He is distracted from his sad thoughts by Tahua approaching, and the guy rises up on his elbows. The crocodile opens its mouth wide, revealing the much-desired mystical fish inside. Returning home, Lian Shi begins training and thinks that blood energy is a reflection of a warrior's physical strength, but he cannot be powerful just because his blood energy is strong. Quite the opposite. By developing the body, he cultivates internal energy. Therefore, she is not a source, she is a result. And it is this result that can strengthen the source, forming a beneficial, endless cycle. Reflecting on these basic truths, Lian Shi diligently trains and meditates. The aroma of incense given to him by Master Hu Qi wafts around him. The key to breaking through the skin barrier lies in concentrating the blood energy in the chest chakra area, and the meat of the mystical fish allows you to speed up this process a little. This is already the 38th attempt, but the guy does not give up and continues to try again and again. He recalls the master's words that in order to overcome the skin barrier, it is necessary to concentrate one's energy to stimulate the body's integument and muscle fascia. We are talking about the power that bubbles within each student during physical training. It is the source of life itself. The master said that when Shi felt the warmth spreading in his chest, he should direct it through all his bones and lungs. And this must be done until it reaches the outer shell and breaks out. This is how he will reach the peak of the skin stage. Meanwhile, the 40th attempt is already underway, but it is still not enough. Even though the fusion process with the water monkey spirit had already increased to 45%, the guy still couldn't break through the first barrier. However, he has a premonition that once he reaches 50%, something will change dramatically. The young man notices that the meat has already run out, and the spiritual plants are of little use. Looks like he'll have to go fishing again. Chen and Li Dakong came to his house and decided to visit their new student. They noticed that the young man returned home very late and wanted to make sure that he was okay. Another reason to visit Shi was that both fathers had not seen their sons for 2 days. Lian Shi laughed a little nervously, apologizing and explaining that they had been given a special room for training, so the three of them decided to stay here for a while. In fact, both boys are simply afraid to go home, since their wounds have not yet fully healed. We always knew our sons would have a great future, the men laugh proudly. Then the fathers remember that they also came here to tell Lian Shi that their village is going to organize another sacrificial ceremony for the river god. The guy remembers this tradition, but it seemed to him that all the necessary rituals had already been carried out 3 months ago. Li Dakang explains that after yesterday's omen, when the river god jumped out of the water and grabbed the giant firebird, they cannot do otherwise. So they're talking about that toad, Lian Shi thinks. He promises the men that he will definitely donate some money and take part in the ceremony. Sometime after they left, the boy goes to the Lotus Cave again. There, the young man continues his training. The more time passes, the better he controls the water flow. However, he is still far from ideal, and from time to time, the guy fails to cope with the water's power. In one of his attempts, he again begins to fall to the very bottom of the lotus pond. But, as always, his faithful animals below catch him and pull him back out. Now Shai can control a maximum of 150 liters of water, which can be compressed to a 10-liter volume. This means that a liter flow will have a power of 5 kilograms. Tahua and Chonky do not move away from their owner even a meter, carefully watching his training. If we're being honest about our strength levels, when a guy is underwater, his strength actually exceeds the skin barrier. He could easily handle 4 like Tahua. It's just a pity that he doesn't have a suitable good weapon. The third elder brother mentioned that in this world there are spiritual weapons that can regenerate and even level up. However, the production of such weapons requires the rarest materials and treasures. Lianxia would really like to get something like this. It's hot. It's burning. Suddenly, the young man catches a signal from his pet. The guy turns towards Chanka, not understanding what he found there. The pet leads him to some stones, and she realizes that there is something underneath them. He looks under these stones and sees a feather there, which apparently was left here by that firebird. And this feather looks like something very valuable. She was just about to go to Liu Gong's brother's forge to pick up a weapon. Perhaps he will also be able to find out about this feather from the elder. A young man walks through the streets of the Piñana district, carefully examining the signs, looking for the right forge. His attention is drawn to a huge column of black smoke somewhere in the distance. Finally, he finds the forge. "Welcome, little brother." Liu Gong smiles at him warmly. She also greets him politely and tells his brother about something he found during his morning fishing. "It's a crimson phoenix feather," Brother Liu shouted loudly, unable to contain his emotions. Such a feather is a real treasure for any cultivator. Lianxia immediately asks his elder brother why it is so valuable. Liu replies with admiration that it is simply an amazing find. This feather belongs to a crimson phoenix, a rare mystical creature. When he is in mortal danger, he pours all his life energy into his own feathers, and then sheds all his plumage, which flies all over the world. One of these feathers, which has the greatest concentration of the phoenix's life energy, is called the golden crimson feather, and it is this feather that grants the being rebirth, completely restoring its body. A joyful Lianxia immediately decides that he has found this very precious feather. Brother Liu laughs at the naive boy, because in fact this feather is the most ordinary one. He advises his younger brother not to absorb the energy of this feather, but to make a spiritual weapon out of it. Lianxia had already chosen what kind of weapon he would like to receive. Judging by his last fight with the crab, something like a spear would be perfect for fighting with his underwater techniques. Therefore, without further ado, he chooses the spear. The older brother, not expecting such an answer, looks at the boy in surprise. Such a choice of spiritual weapons is extremely rare to find in their clan. But Brother Liu still agrees and promises to inform him as soon as the spear is ready. By the way, do you know what that column of smoke is? Lianxia recalls what he saw earlier. The older brother immediately loses all his good-natured attitude. He explains that the Fahua temple is located there, where a terrible fire occurred in the morning. But in the midst of the flames, something unexpected appeared that should not have been there. Lianxia asks again, perplexed, what is being discussed. Thanks to his older brother, he learns the terrible news that there were mountain demons in this temple. The tragedy of the Fahua temple began unexpectedly, on one of the most ordinary warm and sunny days. The woman, wounded and exhausted, loudly begged for help, running with her last strength further and further away from that terrible place from which she had miraculously managed to escape. With her hand, she held her own belly, in which, as the temple priests mistakenly believed, her child was located. The monk, who was diligently sweeping the porch of his temple, did not immediately hear her approach. He turned around sharply when he heard cries for help. The woman in front of him was holding on with all her might, her face all wounded and covered in her own blood. She fell to the ground, exhausted, and her consciousness began to slowly slip away. The monks rescued her, taking her to their temple and laying her on one of the free beds. "Amitabha, you've finally woken up," the temple teacher rejoiced when she came to. The elderly man smiled kindly at the exhausted woman and asked what had happened to her and who had hurt her so. The woman sat up in bed and grabbed her terribly throbbing head, not even understanding where she was right now. She is from Hatsu County, but 3 months ago she decided to come to Pingyang to visit relatives. However, on the way she was attacked by some bandits. They blindfolded her and took her to the most terrible place she had ever seen. When the bandage was torn from her face, hell incarnate opened up before her. People were tortured and cruelly abused there until only a weak, mutilated ghost remained. "They wanted to ask for a ransom for you?" the teacher suggests. The woman clutches her head again, and the horror she experienced is still reflected in her eyes. She remembers what these people told her then, that they are all material for some kind of pearls. The torturers carved strange runes into the stomachs of the still-living test subjects, which immediately began to glow red. Several men dressed all in black regularly carried out their terrible bloody rituals. With the help of a knife, they helped disgusting creatures to emerge from the stomachs of unfortunate people. And even this ritual knife looked strange. Its handle resembled elongated intestines. None of those who were unlucky enough to fall into the hands of these people survived. While the pearl was being extracted, the surrounding area was filled with acrid crimson smoke. The man making an incision in the belly of one of the captives raised his bloody hands up, observing the result of his efforts. After all the manipulations, a small, brightly glowing bloody ball fell into his hand. One of the observers, a Liang, grimaced in disgust as he asked the guy standing next to him what kind of crap they were pulling out of these people's stomachs. "These are pearls of immortality," Lin Guyen answered him. "First, these people are fed a decoction of the mountain monster's flesh, regardless of gender, and their bellies begin to swell, bearing lumps of flesh. After 3 months, these lumps become uterine pearls, from which real pearls of immortality can emerge. We must not allow the process to drag on. If these pearls are not removed in time, they will hatch after a while." "Hatching? Into what?" a Liang asks in horror. Lin Guyan replies that he doesn't want to know. After giving the guest a little rest, after a while, one of the temple students goes to her chambers to bring some food. He knocks awkwardly and carefully opens the door without waiting for permission to enter. Without hearing a word in response, the boy carefully goes inside, afraid to disturb the guest. He is sure that the exhausted woman is probably just sleeping. But suddenly he steps on something wet and looks down. Seeing a pool of thick red blood, the boy widens his eyes in fear. Looking back, he sees their guest's legs, covered in blood, right in front of him. Looking up even higher, the boy realizes that in front of him is only the severed lower half of her body. "Mistress?" the monk cries out, stepping back. In horror, he looks around for the bed, on which, as he had already noticed upon entering, there was also something lying. Looking closely, the boy realizes that the upper part of the woman's body is lying on the bed. Finally realizing everything, the monk screams loudly and jumps back, and all the dishes with food fall out of his hands with a crash. Suddenly, a drop of thick, dark blood drips from somewhere above, right onto his forehead. Holding his breath, the boy slowly raises his head up. From there, a terrible demon looks at him, with the intestines of a murdered woman wrapped around his neck. After some time, Lu Xiaohu also approaches the temple along with his accompanying disciples. A monk named Liu kindly agreed to escort them all to the temple, so that they would not have to disturb the great master. One of the men warmly thanks the monk for his help, but Xiaohu believes that there is no need to thank the monk for this, since such an act is the direct responsibility of absolutely any cultivator. Zheng ordered him to deal with the Fahua temple, cover for Lord Zhao, and retrieve some very important item. Xiaohu doesn't know what this thing is, but he was promised that he would understand everything when he saw it. Finally, they reach the very foot of the temple. He looks majestic, full of strength and humility at the same time. However, upon entering, Xiaohu and his entourage stop in horror. Scattered throughout the temple grounds are numerous mutilated bodies of dead monks. "Teacher!" Monk Lu suddenly cries out as soon as the initial shock wears off. The boy rushes to the entrance of the temple, hoping that he is not too late and can still save his teacher. One of the students follows him, while the rest decide to look around cautiously. All these corpses look like they were bitten by a giant insect. To his horror, Xiaohu does not see a single intact corpse, but his attention is drawn to the bloody footprints that stand out brightly against the light stone floor. Judging by these tracks, some of the bodies were dragged somewhere, and these tracks end right where the monk and Xiaolu are now standing. They go inside and everyone else ends up following right behind them. Monk Lu, who fell to his knees immediately at the entrance, looked straight ahead with indescribable horror on his face. So, this is this I have to return? Xiao Hu is mentally horrified. Right in front of him stands something that resembles a huge egg, and around it are dozens of glued corpses, covered in slime. Monk Lu folds his hands in front of his face and begins to pray in despair. Suddenly, with a loud bang, the door behind them slams shut, cutting off their way back. One of the men immediately screams in fear and rushes to the door. In a panic, he pounds on it with his fists, loudly cursing those who so vilely locked them here. But now the door is the least of their problems. Right in front of them is the egg of a mountain demon, and it all resembles the signature of the cult of the Mother of Spirits. Apparently, these are the remnants of a previous dynasty. When each mountain monster hatches, it absorbs blood and flesh to enter its second stage. The maturation is almost complete, and the monster will hatch any minute. Xiao Hu knows that it will be a monster comparable to a warrior of the steed level. This information makes everyone else even more horrified. But before they can do anything, the monster begins to hatch. This happens quite quickly, and now a huge second-stage mountain demon stands in front of the cultivators. The monk continues to pray frantically, even though he understands that it will no longer help him. The first thing the monster does is rush at him and immediately sink its teeth into his throat, easily tearing the flesh. "Monk!" Xiao Lu cries out and takes a step towards the monster. The man rushes to help Monk Lu, although he knows in advance that he will not defeat this monster. The monster immediately raises its head, glaring at the cultivator rushing towards it. The monster only needs one movement of its paw to throw the enemy to the floor, knocking the weapon out of his hands. The demon grabs the man's face with his sharp claws and pulls him towards himself. Xiao Hu freezes in place, not daring to come to the aid of the student because he himself has not yet even overcome the fourth barrier, while the monster is equal to the level of the steed. The man thinks that he needs to run quickly. His strength should be enough to knock down the door. But if this nasty stuff gets out, hundreds, if not thousands, of people will die. The man hesitates, trying to make a difficult decision for him. He always lived by the principle that his own life always came first. Xiao Hu thinks about his father, remembering his house, and tries to convince himself to just turn away and run away from here. At this time, Xiao Lu is praying for help, resisting the monster's power with all his might. Finally, Xiao Hu makes a decision that is unexpected even for himself and attacks the monster, pulling Xiao Lu out of its clutches. Looks like today he'll finally find out how strong the steed is. Once upon a time, when he was still a child, he dreamed of becoming as strong as Teacher Yang. He remembers very well the day when he and his father decided to go to the big city. Back then, they were confident that working at the Zhao estate was their chance for a better life. Xiao Hu's younger brother was confident that his elder brother would definitely succeed. Zhao Xueyuan only scoffed, certain that these poor, ragged people would never be accepted into the clan. The young master believed that all Xiao Hu and his father should do was hide in a corner and rot there. Quarrels and fights between the two boys occurred almost every day, and each time, Xiao Hu's father helped his son heal his wounds. The man believed that one should behave with dignity, respect one's elders, and be diligent in one's studies. And Xiao Hu agreed with him, but he was unable to follow these commandments because of the cruelty of his new master. But the most important thing my father said was that you absolutely must become someone you yourself will respect. After some time, the boy grew up and went to the Yang family clan, where he found much more understanding. And now, seeing this demon in front of him, the man thinks, what would Master Yang have done in his place? Once, upon being accepted into the clan, Xiao swore that he would not harm those who were weaker or abuse his position for gain. The words of this oath flash through the man's mind as he rushes into battle with the monster. He promised to respect his teachers and senior students. He swore that he would stand guard over justice and fight only for good. Thoughts of this oath give a man strength and confidence in the battle with the mountain demon. The man always listened with delight to stories about the great master. Yang Dong Seon is an unwavering warrior with a fierce gaze and a sharp sword that threatens the death of his enemies. His sword is always ready to cut, pierce, stab, and chop at enemies fighting evil. The weapon in the hands of the master shines brighter than gold and sapphire. His furious movements pierce the darkness like a sunbeam, terrifying his enemies. According to the stories, the great master fought against entire hordes of monsters in the midst of sand and winds. Xiao Hu knows that he is not like that at all. He is unable to cope with this monster, and the monster easily bites off his right hand. He always loved listening to the legends of Master Yang Dong Seon, and often came to the library to hear them again. And yet, today he managed, if not to kill, then to deeply wound the monster. However, the monster had not yet managed to fully gain strength and truly reach the level of a steed. "I'm sorry, I have to leave you. I can't let him escape," the man wheezed weakly, turning to the still-living Xiao Lu. The guy replies that everything is fine, and in his eyes, Xiao is a real hero. But Xiao himself is sure that the world is full of people who are much braver and more worthy than him. Young Master Zhao often gave him cruel orders. One day he ordered that the teeth of 2 small hungry children sitting nearby be knocked out, otherwise he would knock out Xiao's own teeth. Then the boy took a few steps towards the kids and froze. He had to carry out the order to rise to the top and become a powerful man, but I couldn't. Then he found the strength to do the right thing. Just like today, by the way. Unfortunately, everyone learned about the tragedy only when the temple had already burned to the ground. Upon entering, the cultivators were met with a strange sight. The burnt bodies of Xiao Hu and the monster he defeated, which the man managed to pierce through with his sword. Next to these bodies, a token with Xiao Hu's name was lying on the floor, unharmed, and one of the cultivators noticed it. Thanks to this, everyone knew what kind of hero Lu Xiaohu really was. The day the young master ordered him to knock out the children's teeth, he refused and paid dearly for it. After Zhuo Yuan knocked out some of Xiao's teeth as punishment for his refusal, the boy returned to the children and brought them some food. Then he decided that he would be a hero, not a weakling. The news of the burned temple spread like wildfire and eventually reached the Zhao estate. Lord Zhao was furious when he learned that Zheng had sent Master Lu Xiaohu to that temple. He thinks with horror about how angry their ruler will be when he finds out about everything. Zheng falls to his knees, trying to explain that they couldn't delay any longer. The day they learned of the woman's escape, they immediately set out in pursuit. But they couldn't catch her before she reached the temple, and when they finally found her, the temple was already covered in blood, and there was no other choice but to send Xiao Hu there. As soon as he entered the sutra hall, Zheng immediately slammed the door behind him. Then it was necessary to destroy any evidence of what had happened. So Zheng and his servants started a fire. Lord Zhao, even more enraged, grabs the man by the ear, continuing to curse, because it takes at least 3 days for the complete burning. His swearing is interrupted by the quiet voice of a man in a black cloak. He believes that each of the participants is to blame for what happened. They were not honest enough with the Great Mother, and insincerity, he believes, must be punished. So this frightening man reaches out to one of the servants and places his hand on his head, touching the guy's face with long, sharp claws. Now he will fulfill the will of the Great Mother. Right before Lord Zhao and Zheng's eyes, the man kills the servant and his body falls to the floor with a loud thud. Lord Zhao has made great contributions to their cult, so the Great Mother will forgive him. But don't forget, we're all in the same boat, the man says, wiping someone else's blood from his palms with a handkerchief. A frightened Lord Zhao immediately promises to fix everything they have done. As for Zheng, the man asks if he is really willing to give up his own son. The servant falls to his knees, bowing all the way to the floor, and agrees, promising that he will never make such mistakes again. In that case, I'm counting on you. The man grins unpleasantly. At this point, the conversation ends. He turns around and heads for the exit. Lord Zhao breathes a sigh of relief, glad that he is alive and has not been punished. Zheng looks at the body of the murdered servant with horror, frightened by the fact that this man threatened them so openly. Lord Zhao is no less indignant, but for the sake of the wealth and power of his family, he is willing to endure a little. The Lord is glad that the woman still managed to give birth, and the demonic creature itself got rid of unnecessary witnesses, and they only helped it a little in this. In the end, Zhao believes that everything is going almost according to plan, and they just need to lie low. Once everything settles down, they will go to Hanzhou. The Lord there has lands where they can all continue to live in peace. Yan will continue his studies there, and no bastard Yang will interfere in their affairs anymore. To prevent them from being disposed of, Lord Zhao will try to minimize the consequences of the mistake that occurred. Very soon, Lianshi also learned of Xiao Hu's death when he came to the Yanshan market. Li Libo told him that Xiao was the only one who tried to stand up for them that day. He must have been a good man. But still, Shri doesn't understand what Xiao was doing in the Fahua temple. Lu's elder brother said that the Yang clan did not receive any requests from the authorities that day. The guy's thoughts are interrupted by a call from behind him. "You're back," Chen Qingjiang shouts at him. He asks Shi to come back home so that he can see with his own eyes what is happening there. According to the man, a whole crowd of people had already gathered there. None of the conversation notices another mountain demon watching them closely nearby. The monster devours the insect it has caught and constantly repeats Lian Shi's name, never taking its anticipatory gaze off him. They say that the past of great people is filled with pain and suffering, and the more a person suffers, the more magnificent he becomes. Near Lian Shi's house, He Chen Qiang is already waiting for the boy. His son Ding Yi has been lying here on the table with his hands tied for half an hour, waiting for Shi to come home. And he is extremely unhappy with this fact, believing that this small fisherman is not worth it. In response to his indignation, his father swings and hits him on the butt with a thin stick he had prepared in advance. He can't believe that he has such a stupid son who doesn't understand the importance and potential of their little plan. Two more people are watching them through a crack in a slightly open door nearby, quietly talking. These are Lian Shu's aunt and uncle, and they decided that all those people in the yard came to complain about their wayward nephew. They never helped the boy in any way, confident that he would never repay them properly for their kindness. Lian Gongtian, Uncle Shai, notices that the boy is already approaching the house and falls silent. Lian Shu looks with surprise at the picturesque picture of a tied-up boy right outside his house. Han Chenqiang rushes forward, joyfully greeting the cultivator. "Dear nephew," the man shouts with a wide smile. Running up to Lian Shu, he immediately begins to shower him with praise and compliments, saying that it is not surprising that Master Yang made such a wonderful young man his disciple. Hearing this, the rest of the gathered villagers begin to talk loudly among themselves, because they have not heard this news yet. A personal disciple is like an adopted son. Now, according to the villagers, even the prefectural authorities will take Lian Shu into account. No one expected that this quiet boy would achieve such dizzying success. People immediately rushed to offer their daughters as wives, not forgetting to shower the young man with compliments. He Chenqiang, with a look of pain and disappointment on his face, hands his stick to Lian Shu, allowing him to beat his son to death for daring to act so dishonorably. Instantly cheering up, Lian Shu picks up a stick and smiles bloodthirstily. He is not at all the type to remember grievances for a long time, but you can't keep everything inside. It can affect your peace of mind. "What do you think?" Shu smiles maliciously, leaning down to the face of the tense, tied-up Ding Yi. The guy immediately begins to beg for mercy, promising that he will never treat anyone so badly again. Lian Shu laughs loudly and throws the stick to the ground. After all, this guy wasn't the one who started it back then. She was about to leave, but Chenqiang called out to him again. The man says he cannot remain so ungrateful. Therefore, he wants to give his nephew 200 silver liang. As soon as he names the amount, Gongtian jumps out from the neighboring house and rushes towards Chenqiang. He convinces the stunned man that he is Lian Shu's real uncle and offers to discuss compensation with him as a relative. The villagers immediately pounce on the uncle and loudly curse, reminding him how the man did not even open the door for the baby when he was dying of hunger. "Where would he be if it weren't for me?" Gongtian disagrees. Still surprised, Chenqiang quietly asks Shu who the strange man is, to which Shu replies that he doesn't know him. According to the memories of the true owner of this body, this so-called uncle was never kind to him. He is just a parasite living at the expense of others. So Shu says that if he Chengqiang really wants to repay him that much, then soon the village will hold a festival in honor of the river god, and every villager is obliged to donate at least 100 fen. Therefore, Mr. He could help the villagers cover these expenses so that they can save money for the coming winter, and also set up a field kitchen for a couple of days, since there have been a lot of hungry people here lately. The villagers who heard this immediately burst into loud, joyful cries. With relief, the young man enters the house and closes the door behind him. The last time he trained his skin barrier, it wasn't as dense as before, but rather felt somewhat inflamed. It looks like he'll finally break through the first barrier today. However, such a breakthrough will cause severe overheating. One mistake and his brain could simply burn out, so to avoid this, he will have to cool down physically. The guy dives into the water and starts training. The entire room is filled with steam from evaporating water. Lian Shu is extremely focused in his attempts to finally break through the skin barrier. After a while, golden waves of energy begin to spread from the young man's body in all directions. Finally, it worked. Lian Shu understands. Now he can control up to 250 liters of water, which is a very significant increase. Although, to his regret, the system percentage never increased. Perhaps if the guy can overcome the remaining barriers, he will be able to control tons of water. He is glad that his abilities harmonize so well and complement each other perfectly. Deciding to take a walk and get some fresh air, the guy heads outside. He opens the door, and it suddenly hits Uncle Gongtian right in the face. The man screams and falls on his back, unable to stay on his feet. "Beloved nephew," he begins to fawn. "What do you want?" Lian Shu asks him, perplexed. Smiling flatteringly, the uncle begins to say that he was so worried about the health of his beloved nephew that he scraped a little rice for him from the bottom of his jug. Lian refuses the generous offer, because now that he has joined the Yang clan, he will no longer suffer from a lack of food. He tries to close the door, but his uncle grabs the doorframe and doesn't let him do it, in response to which Shu abruptly opens the door back, hitting his uncle with it again, but much harder. Once again, the man falls painfully to the ground, and the bag of rice falls to the ground, spilling its contents. This infuriates him, and Gongtian begins to indignantly shout throughout the street that he is Lian Shu's uncle, and that even the guy's house should have belonged to him. He was deeply outraged by the fact that Lian Shu did not take even half of the amount that Mr. He offered him, although he could have taken that money and helped his cousin and his family instead of being so selfish. "Lian Gongtian, did you want to die?" Lian Shu asks calmly, his eyes blazing with something dangerous. The uncle immediately falls silent, suddenly noticing that this boy now looks and feels completely different from before. He decides to use a different tactic, falls to the ground and screams loudly throughout the street, complaining to the people crowded around that this cruel boy has joined the clan and now doesn't even recognize his own family. Gongtian didn't expect that in response to his fiery speech, he would receive a loud spit in the face from one of the women standing nearby. "Did you help pay for his father's coffin or share your food with him when he was dying?" the woman screams menacingly, towering over the humiliated Gongtian. Because of his impudence, Lian Shu's father inherited only one boat and had to work day and night to raise and feed his son. Unwilling to listen to these accusations, Gongtian begins to curse, calling the women who scold him the dirtiest names, and immediately gets hit with a stick right in the stomach. When the boy started getting good at something, did you rush to reap the benefits of his success? "Where were you before?" Chief Chen Zhaoan snapped, continuing to press the end of his stick into Gongtian's body. He orders the man to get out of here right now, and he obeys immediately. In Yanshin County, this old man is far from the only headman, but he is special because he is the head of the Chen family, and even Lord Zhao must take him into account. Lian Shu bows to the elder and thanks him for his help once again. The elder smiles kindly at him in response and says that he came here today to offer him the opportunity to become a priest at the river festival. Lian Shu realizes that this is a great opportunity to observe everything that happens at the festival from the sidelines. Perhaps there he will be able to figure out what the river's favorability scale, which appeared recently, means. So the boy agrees, and the joyful elder asks him to be sure to learn the ritual texts. The next morning arrives. The sun is shining brightly and the birds are chirping, comfortably perched on the branch of one of the trees. Lian Shu slowly wanders through the house, yawning and covering his mouth with his hand. He doesn't know the local hieroglyphs, which is bad in itself, and now he also has to learn ritual texts. "I will become a disciple of the ancient world," the boy cries out decisively, raising his hand. Today his training begins at the school where Master Yang sent him. The first lesson begins, and the teacher monotonously reads out texts about the importance of diligence and honor. Lian Shu feels extremely awkward among the other students. When it came to the need for schooling, he didn't think it would be elementary school. One of the students notices that Lian Shu does not repeat the teacher's words, and, without thinking twice, raises her hand and complains. The teacher, hearing this, angrily clutches the book, stopping reading. The man sternly reprimands the new student, convinced that Shai should be grateful to his master for allowing him in at all. "Be glad that I became your teacher," he says a little arrogantly. Instead of answering, Lian Shu begins to recite the text they had just heard. "Follow the will of the law, respect authority and act wisely. Diligence will bring you comfort, honor, and wealth," the guy explains the commandments with a slight smile. "Do not associate with criminals, for they are unworthy by nature. Learning is difficult, but you must be diligent to know the world." Lian Shu stands up from his seat and bows politely, pleased with himself. He learned everything because he studied at a prestigious university in his past life, but this method of learning hieroglyphs is ineffective. These words infuriate the teacher, because this method has been passed down through many generations. He doesn't understand what some ignoramus can offer. The guy replies that the classical method has some merit, but it is very complicated, and still requires memorizing the writing of each individual character. Lian Shu, however, suggests a method in which the hieroglyph is divided into symbols that represent specific sounds. He calls this system pinyin. Sounds simpler than the semantic method. Suddenly a voice is heard. This is teacher Shi Hengui. He smiles good-naturedly and asks Shu to tell him more about this method. The students immediately jump up from their seats when they see the master who has arrived from the capital itself. The primary school teacher bows deeply before him. Hengui tells Lian Shu that in Dashan it is customary to reward scholars. If a person invents something useful, he may receive money, tax exemption, or even a noble title. Shai realizes that this is the perfect opportunity to avoid suspicion, because very soon people will begin to notice his uniqueness. Unexpectedly, Hengui offers him to study under his supervision. This shocks teacher Jiang, but the master quickly cuts off all his indignation. Jiang is unhappy that the boy does not have a high enough rank to match a teacher like Hengui. However, the master himself is confident that there is nothing to worry about. What his student cannot ask, he will ask himself. What the student cannot resist, he will take upon himself. Lian Shu bows deeply in gratitude. Meanwhile, his pets, like real cats, play with a ball of thread in a lotus pond. With satisfied grins on their fanged faces, they beat off this ball with their paws and claws. After seeing Tahua and Clash playing, Chonky wanted to join them. Swimming closer to the skein of thread, the pet freezes for a second, taking aim for a strike. But the little crab gets ahead of him and deals a huge blow. The ball lands right on Chonka, who wasn't expecting such a setup. Together with the threads, he is thrown forward several meters. Chonky hits a stone wall and suddenly a small passage is discovered at the place of impact. The pets freeze in surprise, looking at him with some apprehension. Already at night, having received a signal from the kids, Lian Shi again descends to the bottom of the lotus pond. Tahua, proud of their find, majestically leads the boy to the discovered passage. With a chuckle, Lian Shi praises the little crocodile for his efforts. Without any remorse, Tahua convinces the owner that it was he who dug this passage. The other pets look at him with disapproval, but do not dare to object. Shai praises his pets again and laughs a little awkwardly. He looks inside and realizes that this place is much larger than he initially thought. A turquoise light spreads around, apparently emanating from the vine. The guy carefully touches it with his hands, enjoying the softness of the texture. Without wasting time thinking, he pulls the vine towards himself and sinks his teeth into it. And then he spits out in disgust, dissatisfied that he couldn't even bite through it. Having decided that there is nothing dangerous here yet, he nevertheless swims inside and calls his pets to come with him. Suddenly, the guy realizes that there is air in this place. Looking around carefully, he tries to find where exactly this strange vine is coming from. Suddenly, he notices a barely audible movement behind his back. At the last second, the guy manages to dodge the unusual insect that attacked him. Flying past, the little monster crashes right into the stone and breaks it. In fact, Shi had noticed him a long time ago, but he didn't show it. Taking a closer look, he realizes with surprise that this insect is a centipede, and she tries to attack again. The insect's attack is repelled by Clash, who arrives in time. It grows in size at lightning speed to protect its owner. But the centipede, apparently, is not going to give up either. She lunges at the attack again, but is caught mid-flight by a huge claw. The proud little crab raises its claw upwards, showing its owner its prey. Shai heard somewhere that centipedes have very powerful mandibles, but there is a more terrible weapon, and that is her poison. The guy thinks that if he can subdue this centipede, he will have an excellent hidden weapon. Psychic energy should be just enough to subjugate a creature of this level. The young man's body became much stronger after breaking through the skin barrier. A little later, he plans to order a dagger from Brother Liu at the forge. He cuts his finger with a sharp stone he picked up and extends his hand towards the centipede, preparing to begin the ritual. On the insect's body, he draws a bloody sign of submission. Suddenly, the system explodes with dozens of warning messages. In the end, even despite the unexpected powerful recoil, the young man defeats the centipede. It turns out that this is a celestial centipede that is mutated by absorbing spiritual mushrooms and the warrior's blood. The guy screams indignantly when he sees a notification that he will need 10,000 points of water essence to evolve into a winged celestial centipede. He decides to name his new pet Afe, and most of all, he is interested in where this creature was able to find so many spiritual mushrooms, and the centipede decides to show him. The guy approaches the indicated place and hesitantly looks inside, and to his horror, he finds someone's skeleton there. According to the inscription nearby, this is a former general of the fleet of the Great Khan dynasty, who, after being defeated and mortally wounded, sank and not having the shame to appear before his majesty, decided to meet his death in this place. The guy stands in front of the skeleton, hesitant. He tries to read the written text, but understands only half of it. He frowns in displeasure, trying to figure it out again. Shai turns his head from side to side, assuming that somewhere here there might be an ancient battlefield buried. Not finding anything similar, he decides to turn his attention to the chest located next to the dead general. Most likely, the centipede ate a considerable portion of the spiritual mushrooms lying in the chest. The guy takes the mushroom and, looking gratefully at the general's skeleton, heads towards the exit from this place. The amount of mushrooms he found should be enough to push the fusion past 50%. Looking at the spirit mushroom he found, the boy wonders out loud how many pieces he will give to his pets. Finally, he distributes their parts to the pets, and still has a fairly large mushroom left in his hand. Shai immediately throws it into his mouth, starting to chew impatiently. This mushroom tastes soft and tender, like tofu. After chewing it, Shai gets a whole 216 points of water essence, which is even more than from the roe of that crab. The young man decides to spend them all on upgrading. The system notifies that an aqua jerk has occurred. With every second, Lian Shu's body gains strength and energy. A real fire is blazing inside him. A bright red light slowly blooms right on the guy's chest. The more time passes, the more it spreads, covering an ever larger surface area of the body. Eventually, everything calms down, and the power is absorbed within the cultivator's body. Now Lian Shu is extremely curious to see what he is capable of. Without thinking twice, he activates his new ability, Aqua Dash. Unable to cope with such high speed and choose the right direction, the guy crashes face first into the stonework. Now he knows that this is a skill for movement, and one that burns quite a lot of energy. The system window appears again, and adds information that the Aqua Dash can be upgraded to an Aqua Jump with the help of the river's favor. A happy Lian Shu realizes that he can now control up to 400 liters of water at once. Pets have also leveled up quite well. Tahua now requires 280 points of water essence to evolve into a horned crocodile. Chonky needs 240 points of water essence to evolve into a tiger catfish. Finally, Clash requires 7,600 points of water essence to evolve into Kingstone Crab. Lian doesn't understand when Chonky managed to overtake everyone else. Something doesn't add up here, but the guy attributes it all to digestive issues. The River Festival starts in just a week, so he needs to spend the remaining time training hard. A week later, in a peaceful village, one of Lian Shi's friends knocks insistently on the door, as it's high time for them to leave for the festival. Afe, come here, Shi commands quietly, reaching out his hand to the new pet. The pet obediently climbs up the owner's hand. The centipede wraps itself around his wrist, becoming like a fancy bracelet. And only after that, Shi opens the door and goes outside. Preparations for the festival are already in full swing in the main square of the village. A lot of people have gathered here today, and among them, a little girl in a red dress clearly stands out. She looks into the distance and suddenly, completely unexpectedly, begins to cry in fright. The girl's mother immediately bends down and asks why her little Nier is crying. The girl starts crying even harder and points her fingers somewhere to the side, claiming that there is a monster there. The mother is sure that the child is just imagining things, because where could monsters come from in their village? She asks the girl to stop crying and promises to buy her favorite sweets if she is obedient. Nier's mother doesn't notice that a mountain demon is actually peeking out from around the corner nearby. The monster mutters something under its breath, and if you listen closely, you can easily discern the name Lian Shi among this muttering. The grand opening ceremony begins. Bring in the sacrificial animals, the command is heard. Along with them, the shaman also comes out into public view. He commands the high priest to begin the ceremony. Lian Shi, who is the chief priest today, hesitates. Having gathered himself, he climbs up the wooden stairs and approaches the heads of the sacrificial animals. Let the ritual begin, the shaman commands. Lian Shi opens the scroll with the text he needs and begins to read it loudly. Li Libo and Jichang look at him with admiration and listen carefully, trying to discern every word. Or he looks at his friend especially closely, mentally noticing that he has changed very much. They grew up together, but now Libo is no longer sure that the same Lian Shi stands before him. Meanwhile, the mountain demon, making short dashes across the rooftops of houses, gets closer and closer to the people. Finally, he reaches the nearest roof and stops. Lian Shi immediately notices him and widens his eyes in shock. Right in front of him sits the very same mountain monster that Brother Liu had recently told him about in the forge. The skin was cracked, like dry bark, just like in the picture from Hao Mu Tang's Almanac of Monsters. Nier also notices the monster again. She screams in fear and calls her mother to show her the monster that has appeared so close. And this time, the girl's mother, as well as the rest of the villagers, finally notice him. Realizing that he has been spotted, the monster jumps off the roof and rushes into the crowd. Lian Shi's friends loudly shout at the villagers to run in different directions. Little Nier, in the ensuing panic, loses sight of her mother and is left completely alone. At the same time, the girl's mother is also frightened and looking for her daughter, unsuccessfully trying to break through the crowd of people. The mountain demon appears out of nowhere right behind the little girl and immediately rushes to attack. Jichang, noticing this, rushes to the girl, but is afraid that he will not make it in time. Libo also rushes forward with all his might and doesn't make it in time. The girl's mother screams in horror, trying to get to her daughter. Jichang, who finally managed to get there at the last second, grabs the girl in his arms and, together with her, flies to the side from the monster's blow. He hugs the frightened child close to him, hoping to protect him from the merciless monster. Li rushes to their aid. He had only recently learned the new technique and hadn't used it yet, but he had no other choice. The boy throws his dagger at the monster, hoping to at least slightly wound it. However, the monster easily dodges this blow. Li doesn't have time to throw another dagger, while the mountain demon has almost reached Jichang and the girl in his arms. The monster's mouth is bared menacingly, and its eyes glow with a maddening red color as it stretches its huge paws with the sharpest claws towards the people. In desperation, Jichang calls Lian Shi, hoping that his friend has some tricks up his sleeve. And he turns out to be absolutely right. With the help of an aqua dash, Lian Shi catches up with the monster and prevents it from attacking his friend and the girl. His fist slams right into the monster's body, pressing it to the ground with all its force, thereby splitting the stone floor into many fragments. He made it, Lian Shi realizes with relief. The guy was terribly afraid that he wouldn't be able to save his friend. And this is most likely what would have happened if he had not noticed in time the water from the river collected for the ritual. For an aqua dash, he will need water, which means he will have to create the necessary conditions himself. Shai put his hand into the water, urging it to rise. And with a good swing, he directed the streams of water forward, making a path for himself to use the skill. At the last second, right before the stunned Jichang's eyes, he repelled the monster's attack with just one fist. The force of his blow shook the earth, and small stones flew in all directions. Just in time, Ji-chang exhaled when he realized he was saved. The shocked boy tries to ask his friend about his abilities, but Shar interrupts him. He orders his friend to take the girl and run from here as fast as he can, and Ji-chang obediently runs away, but only to take the girl to a safe place and return back. Lian Shi doesn't understand where this creature could have come from. When the dust raised by the impact clears, the boy realizes that the monster has disappeared, and the very next second the mountain demon appears behind him. Lian Shi didn't sense his approach in advance, but still managed to dodge the attack. This mountain demon is stronger than he expected. The real fight begins and Lian Shi dodges all attacks, waiting for the right moment. Here it is, my chance, the guy thinks after a while. With a furious cry, he attacks himself, loudly wishing the monster would die. A worried Li Libo and Ji Chang watch the fight from the sidelines. Having waited for the moment, they also rush into the attack. Lian Shi shouts to them that the monster must be immobilized first. Therefore, you don't need to wave knives left and right, you need to aim at the joints. From all sides, cultivators attack the monster, plunging knives into its decaying flesh. The mountain demon throws his head up and his angry cry echoes throughout the area. You want to kill me? Sorry, but that's not enough, Lian Shi chuckles to himself. Taking advantage of the fact that the monster was slightly weakened by the blows of the daggers, the guy deals it a powerful kick, and this kick is so strong that the monster is thrown forward several meters. Lian Shi decides to use his new pet, and commands Afe to attack. The obedient centipede fearlessly rushes straight at the mountain demon. The guy thinks that this creature will definitely get hit by Afe's poison today. Several men from the village have gathered nearby, and are watching what is happening with fear. Soon, the mountain demon notices their presence. He sharply turns towards the defenseless people and roars loudly. Don't even think about it, Lian Shi shouts at him. Deciding not to wait for the moment when the monster attacks ordinary people, the young man throws a sharpened pole prepared for the ritual at it. The guy's weapon reaches its target and pierces the monster through and through. He doesn't stop there and runs closer to deliver another kick. Shai looks tensely at the defeated monster, hoping that now it's all over. The monster begins to mutter again, and among its incoherent speech, the words immortality and Lian Shi are clearly distinguishable. The boys understand that the villagers who see all this will now start to panic. But Lian Shi does not agree with them. He resolutely approaches the monster and says that this is a blessing for all of Yanshin. Taking out a dagger, he mercilessly cuts off the monster's head. This is an ideal offering for the river god. Lian Shi made a sacrifice to the lord of the pool Hua, and the river's favor increased, although less than even by 1%. After the sacrifice, thoughtful people gather around the body of the defeated monster. Shai is currently busy thinking about what would have happened if he had broken through the skin barrier, hadn't eaten that mushroom, and hadn't increased the fusion percentage. And if he hadn't used Afe's poison today, he definitely wouldn't have been able to defeat this creature. She realizes that he really does seem to have become much stronger. In addition, he finally received the river's favor, with which he will be able to upgrade his new ability. At this time, the worried headman brings a doctor to the boy. As soon as Shi takes off his soiled clothes to conduct an examination, the doctor immediately begins showering his figure with compliments. The embarrassed boy thanks him, but still asks him to look at his wound first. After treating the wound, the doctor asks what material Lian Shi's clothes were made of. The boy replies that the cape was given to him by his second eldest brother. It is made of bearskin, strong as steel, and the dress was given to him by his eighth eldest brother, and it is made of heavenly silk. Even though the boy's clothes were of high quality, the doctor knew they wouldn't have protected his skin that well. The doctor asks if the guy accidentally broke through the skin barrier, and everyone around immediately turns around as soon as they hear this. The embarrassed young man confirms his increased strength with an awkward smile. Li is proud of his friend, who has now become a true warrior. To his envy, it only took Shai a few months. At this time, Uncle Gong Tian hid in the thick of the crowd of people, fearing that the boy, who had become too strong, would go to take revenge on him. The village chief asks Lian Shi what kind of monster it was, as he had never seen one like it before. The guy replies that this monster is called a mountain demon, and it feeds on blood. Most likely, he was attracted here by the large crowd of people. When the guy says that this monster wasn't the first one here, people are shocked and horrified. And then one of the villagers notices something strange. The head of the defeated monster looks too much like Ban Xinjiang. Looking closer, Shi realizes that this is true. As if a mosaic were being put together in his head, a complete picture was beginning to form. Out of the blue, it dawns on me that Lord Zhao's estate is cultivating mountain demons. This is a very serious matter, so the cultivator is simply obliged to report what happened to his teacher, because people are absolutely right, and this monster was once Ban Xinjiang. They will answer for everything, the guy thinks resolutely, clenching his teeth from the emotions overwhelming him. So he urgently returns back to the clan and immediately heads to the Yang family's house. He bows politely to Lady Yang and asks her to take him to the master so that he can tell him the important news. Without wasting any time, he immediately voiced his suspicions that the incident with the Tahua temple was definitely related to Lord Zhao's estate. To his surprise, Mrs. Yang only smiled at him slightly condescendingly, noting that it was not for nothing that the master took him as a student. Lianshu realized that everyone here already knew about it. Mrs. Yang laughs in response to his surprise, because unlike her student, she herself never forgets who exactly Yang Song is. Pinyan's one and only tiger warrior. The citadel of the Demon Mother sect is in for a very unpleasant surprise. The followers of the sect were sedately climbing the steps of their temple when they heard something strange behind them. The wind suddenly rose, and the sky became covered with unusual clouds, thereby plunging the followers of the Mother Demon sect into terror. A powerful stream of bright golden light pierced the dark depths of the sky, and it became clear that the sect was under attack. "Surrender," Yang Dongseon said, stepping out into full view. Meanwhile, the Lianshu clan is restless and uneasy. 2 whole days had already passed since the mistress ordered him to stay in the clan so as not to spoil the teacher's plans. She even gave him 2,000 fen for daily pocket money. Moreover, she asked him to be sure to tell her if he suddenly didn't have enough money, and then she would give him more. Thanks to the flesh-restoring pill, the young man's wounds had almost completely healed. The teacher believes that the Demon Mother cult is planning a large-scale attack on cultivators to obtain potions. That's why the lady keeps shy here for safety reasons. Suddenly, an object launched by someone nearby flies towards Lianshu. Luckily, he notices the danger in time and easily repels the attack. The small golden orange that was thrown at him flies into the wall, breaking off several stones. "Who's there?" the guy asks, a little tensely. Elder brother Hu comes out from around the corner and praises his student for being so vigilant. He was told that Shi was currently in the clan, so he thought that the student would be in this very place. The elder brother Hu, seeing a spear in the hands of the younger one, invites him to have a little sparring match. Lianshu agrees without hesitation, promising the elder not to hold back and to fight with all his might. "Attack!" he says to his sparring partner today, anticipating. And suddenly, another strong orange appears in the hands of the elder brother Hu. With lightning speed, he launches it towards Lianshu, who looks at the golden ball in shock. The blow was so unexpected. Taking advantage of his confusion, the older brother immediately attacks. A real battle begins, and although Lianshu tries his best, he still clearly outshines the more experienced member of the clan in skill. Despite all the young man's efforts, his opponent still manages to knock the spear out of his strong grip, and he is left completely unarmed. Quickly getting his bearings, Shai jumps up and tries to attack without the spear. "Good move," his older brother praises him with a chuckle. The orange also finishes its fall and finally touches the floor. Brother Hu had already realized that Shi had broken through the skin barrier, and now, looking at such rapid progress, he was almost certain that the boy definitely had a pattern of fate. Hearing this, Shi immediately asks again with interest, because he had never heard anything about the patterns of fate. To his disappointment, the elder extends his hand to him and replies that the day will soon come, when Master Yang will tell him everything. He invites Lianshu to have another sparring session, and the young man agrees without a doubt. They spend the next few hours in a rather grueling training session, and the elder, in his attempts to teach, does not spare Lianshu at all. Finally, they finish, and the exhausted guy literally spreads out on the bench and tries to catch his breath. At this time, elder brother Hu says that Shi's words about what is happening in the Zhao estate match what he himself has been investigating in recent days. However, everything is somehow too simple. It looks like someone left the mark on purpose. It's possible that Hu is imagining things, but he's not sure about it. Since his youngest has already overcome the skin barrier, he decides to give him a book called The Power of Bowing Technique. Martial techniques are divided into 2 classes, movements and strength. Hu asks the younger one to read this book and use the information he gains in the next sparring match. He then remembers that it was brother Liu who originally sent him to get Lianshu, because his weapon is already ready. Horrible things still continue to happen in the Zhao estate. Frightened people are led past a chamber containing a chained mountain demon. Ling Guyen makes sure that no one strays from the chain. He thinks to himself that one of the future victims is the same age as his daughter. He hesitates, and another student immediately urges him on. They report to the master that all the ingredients are ready, and in 3 days they will be able to feed the demon. They must take good care of the monster, because it is very important. In one of the cells, there are many frightened and exhausted people. One of them looks really bad. The elderly man coughs loudly, starting to mumble something unrelated about the young gentleman. It is said that spiritual weapons have a soul, and those with a hot temper possess explosive weapons. Those who are more accommodating are soft. Brother Liu is hard at work in his forge, crafting weapons, and the first step is to soften the tungsten steel, purify its essence, and strengthen its durability. The second stage is to reveal the energy of the crimson feather and allow the steel to absorb it. The man performs the steps step by step. A flying darkness appears before him, from which he will mold the shape of a spear for his younger brother. And as soon as he sees this darkness, he immediately calls Leon Shu to him. Spiritual weapons must be saturated with the blood of their future owner. So the young man makes a cut on his palm and shares his blood. The entire forge begins to fill with fiery whirlwinds. Brother Liu pays close attention to every detail, but still, something doesn't go according to plan. An unexpected weapon rejects the received blood. "Not on my watch," the blacksmith grins decisively. He stretches his hand forward and makes another attempt. This time he is confident that everything will work out. And indeed, the weapon takes on blood and the job is done. Lian Shu looks at his new spear with silent admiration. He picks it up and realizes that the weapon is quite heavy and weighs at least 54 kilograms. Deciding to try it out right away, the young man takes a swing. With all his might, he thrusts the spear straight into the stone floor, causing it to crumble into pieces. Lian Shu remains extremely pleased with this result. It seems to him that he is connected to this weapon with his own soul. Brother Liu laughs and suggests that the younger brother try out the new spear on the dummies standing in the yard. The guy decides to follow his advice. This weapon is simply perfect, but Lian Shu still hasn't given it a name. After some thought, the boy decides to name the spear Fubo, which means Wave Conqueror. "Looks like your weapon is ready. New guests are arriving at the forge." Huji came with Huji this time Shyam. "What brings you here?" She asks, a little surprised. A dissatisfied Huchi explains that the teacher sent Ji Shia was out on reconnaissance, but instead he was hanging around the taverns, so I had to come here and pick him up. And yet, Ji Shai found out where one of the Demon Mother's strongholds might be located. Even in taverns, if you try, you can find the information you need. On the day he saw the cult followers, Ji Shai was quietly enjoying delicious food and the pleasant company of several beautiful girls.